2018. Mrs. Loisel, could you please call the roll, please?
Thank you. Mr. Belo?
I'm here.
Mr. Boyle?
Here.
Mrs. Doobie?
Here.
Dr. Farah?
Here.
Mr. Guy?
Here.
Mrs. Sherman?
Here.
Mr. Spiro?
Here.
Mr. Ward?
Here.
Also present from administration is the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Roxanne Wilson, and our student representative, Brian Lavoy. Thank you.
Yes. We all could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Lavoy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You remain standing for 1 second, please. I'd like to have a brief moment of silence for the victims in Florida. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Lavoy, give us some good news. What's happening?
All right, so I have a few different things to report on tonight. We'll start kind of in the music type department. The Milkmen, the improv group up at the high school, is having their monthly show next week. All the proceeds for that show are going to be benefiting the National Honor Society up at the high school, and that is at 7. It's a $5 fee. As we speak right now, there's a comedy show with some students in the comedy club happening over at the cafeteria at the high school. So they're having a lot of fun over there, probably doing some good jokes, making some laughs. And then next week, the music department, the faculty of the department, all throughout the Performing Arts Center, are doing a little faculty recital. They're going to put on some performances for the students, which is, I think it's the first time it's happening, which is really interesting. I'm really excited to go to that and see what happens. Kind of move to the elementary schools. Both Sandown North and Danville are doing the Jump Rope for Heart program. Sandown North had theirs today, and then Danville's is having theirs next week. For those of you who don't know, it's a large fundraiser for the American Heart Association. They donate a lot of proceeds to that, which is a really awesome thing that these schools do. We're going to move to the sports now. We have the swim team at the high school, the track, and the ski team all had their state final just the past couple weeks. And then I have one more thing I'm actually going to read off a little bit more. So there's Brianna Hammond is a senior at the high school, and she's kind of organized this whole program. This whole event called Project 211, and I'm just going to read a little message from her. So 211, nobody knows what that number means, but it could save a life. It is the number to dial in case of a crisis. Project 211 is an event night created to help raise awareness for the epidemic our community has been experiencing due to substance abuse. In the past year, we have lost Timberlane students as well as alumni due to substance abuse that led to overdoses. At this event, people will learn what options are available to help and recover, as well as hear the fortunate stories of those who have been down this road of substance abuse but managed to turn their life around. This night will be full of upbeat performances by Timberlane students about hope, as well as raffles and some silent auctions to raise money for both Austin 17 House and a One Life scholarship. And any other proceeds will go to foundations that help get addicts back on their feet. I will be hosted by Austin 17 House in Brentwood, New Hampshire, off of Route 125 on Sunday, March 11th at 4 p.m. There will be a dinner provided by an array of different vendors. And any questions, either contact Austin 17 House, myself, Brian Lavoy, or if you know Brianna Hammond, you can contact her personally as well. I believe that it's a $15 ticket fee, but as I said, all of the proceeds go to different organizations to help the whole program. So that is all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before I bring up the first delegates individuals, just want to make a couple of brief announcements here. We had a resignation last Thursday night. Donna Green, so we accept her resignation with regret. She served this district 2 terms, and thank you for her service. The Board of Selectmen in Sandown have appointed a Lee Doobie to take her place, who's going to be running unopposed anyway. The other thing I wanted to share with the people out there is it came to my attention after, we had I don't know what I'd call that. We had a meeting after deliberative at the library last Thursday night. It came to my attention after that meeting that there was one of our valued employees from the Pollard School was under the impression that her job was being threatened, or she possibly being suspended, that the school board was considering action. I want to make it very clear that the Timberlane Regional School Board at no point in time even talked about, discussed, even thought about doing anything to this individual. So I just want to, I'm sorry that individual went through it. I don't know how stories start, but I just want to make it clear to them that we are in support of our staff. Now, with that being said, delegates and individuals, Mr. Ryan Richmond.
Thank you. Ryan Richmond, President, Timberlane Teachers Association. Lots of positive things tonight. One, we want to thank, the Timberlane Teachers Association wants to thank the voters who turned out for the deliberative session last week in support of a proposed budget now that helps Timberlane do the job that it needs to do. And we agree, we trust the voters of the 4 districts to do the right thing and support Timberlane, stand up for Timberlane by approving the proposed budget on March 13th. With March 13th, we're also excited to join with the Timberlane Support Staff Union in putting out our first voters guide. We sent a questionnaire to all of the candidates in all 4 towns for school board and budget committee, and we will be compiling a voters guide for our members and for the public, and that'll be put out early next week. And we actually want to thank Chairman Boyle because you pointed out to us when you ran last year that we had no mechanism in place for candidates to be able to communicate with our membership. So actually, since last year's election, we've been working towards this. So this is hopefully something that, should you run for re-election, you'll be able to take advantage of. I think we also want to thank all of the participants who took the questionnaire. Almost all the candidates did. And I think it's incredibly important. Having been a former candidate myself in Manchester, I know how important it is to get every possible vote. And Plastow definitely showed us last year how important every single vote is and taking advantage of every opportunity to speak to voters. And to come back to what Mr. Lavoie was speaking about earlier, the Timberlane Teachers Association and the Timberlane Support Staff Union are very, very proud and excited and also humbled to join together to be sponsors of Project 211 at Austin 17 House on March 11th in Brentwood. We strongly, strongly urge all members of the community to attend this event. Definitely as a 15-year veteran, I have seen the needs of our students grow more complex and more difficult to meet every year. And the addiction crisis is one facet of that challenge that we face every single day. And anything and everything that this community can do to stand up to the addiction crisis and also to bring attention to those students that we've lost is incredibly important. So we're honored to be part of this project. And thank you.
Thank you. Sean O'Neill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. What I'm about to read is got me actually mixed with words because I'm very much in my lifetime I've ever been speechless when I read this, but I was when I received this information. I'm in possession of a email that was sent by somebody from the SAU staff to a publishing company that is in charge of our ballots. And I'd like to read it. Now, the first name is to the person that's at this publishing company, and I will leave her name on out of it. It says, this is dated Friday, February 9th, 2018, at 1:42 p.m. in the afternoon, which is less than 18 hours after the deliberative session has finalized. We are still working on finalizing the default budget for the Timberlane ballots. What is the last day to get our ballots info to you that will still allow our school ballots to be collated with the towns of Atkinson, Plastow, Danville, and Sandown? What would be the date if we didn't collate with the towns?
I'm sorry, could you Could you read that again, please?
We are still working on finalizing the default budget for the Timberlane ballots.
That's from a SAU employee.
Yes, it is.
You know anything about this, Dr. Wilson?
No.
Nancy, do you know anything about this?
So we have, you have in your possession an email from a Timberlane employee,
SAU employee, to be
SAU
correct.
employee, after the deliberative, after there was a vote to restrict reconsideration.
That's
on
only
the-
for that meeting.
Excuse me.
Well, just it's for that meeting. I mean, normally we don't do this, so.
No, we don't, but normally, we don't have somebody holding up the ballots. And I would ask you to hold your comments until I'm finished speaking. Thank you.
But we're interrupting Mr. O'Neill's
Okay.
chance to
Okay.
speak.
All right.
Okay, this is a
We're
little,
all speaking.
Okay.
I thought this was his turn to speak.
I will give,
okay, Mr. O'Neill, if you want to add anything to that, because I think that's pretty,
I just think
earth-shattering
that
news.
my comment would be is that having a unelected bureaucrat organization override the elected and decision-making process of this board before me is just, I don't know how to describe it, but anything else than I would consider it the foundations of being illegal. I mean, it's,
Okay,
you're circumventing the decision-making process of this board.
wow.
Can we get copies of that?
You sure can.
So we have something now
That came into his hands.
from the Timberlane, from an SAU employee,
Correct.
which I'm glad you didn't mention the name.
Well, 'cause we should be
I assume
non-public.
it's someone who is senior, but
Shouldn't we be in non-public?
why? We
I
don't-
don't know if we're going to be non-public if we're not going to be discussing names. I think the public, I think this is a little, wow. So the Timberlane School Board,
Mr. Chair, could I ask that we have a chance to investigate? Obviously, he's interpreted it one way. We haven't even had a chance to look at what the information is. So I would ask that we have that opportunity, because we have I have no idea the intent of that. And you know how emails are done. Emails can be misinterpreted, or, in this case, I'm not quite sure.
Dr. Wilson, could I
So-
just reread that statement again?
No, I've
We are
heard it.
still
I
working on
understand it. Thank you.
finalizing the
I've heard
default
it.
budget.
see, this is,
And I know what those words could mean.
I know
And-
exactly what they mean.
Yes, you're interpreting it one way, but I want to make, because this is new information, and you haven't heard it, we haven't heard it, I think
Yeah.
we
Well-
at least have to give, some type of an investigation.
I'm very, I agree with your point, Dr. Wilson, I completely agree with your
I would
point.
ask the question of the chairman, I says, are those ballots already at the printers?
Well, that's,
here's
thank
the-
you. That was my next question. I just, wow.
Who
So,
at the SAU would know whether or not the ballots are at the printer? Are the ballots at the printer?
I don't think we can go into this with
why
names.
can't you?
Why? We're not going into it with names.
Sure you are, just now. Who? You asked who? Those are people.
All right,
These are
well,
people,
This cannot be done in open session.
this is,
This cannot be
this
done
is serious
here.
stuff.
This.
This
needs
is
to be
very
done.
serious stuff.
So
cannot
shouldn't
be
we
done in
have it
open session.
investigated? Instead of
Investigated.
just,
Right.
Oh, no, this is.
just do it all in public and humiliate and embarrass
Excuse me,
people?
Brian.
Let's find out what it is.
Mrs. Doobie.
It was my understanding that they were going to print the following day.
Well, that's what we've always been told that, yeah.
Well,
After
not
you
even
vote, you
always.
print the following day. That was, we've had a couple of meetings about this, and I very clearly recall Mrs. Belcher saying, because she was signing, what's the MSDS? Is that the form?
MSDS 27.
Okay, so we all signed that, and that was the reason.
I'll sign it. So
Well-
you had it signed Thursday night after
Right,
the special meeting of the school board.
That's
after the
correct.
deliberative. You signed,
that was
it
signed
was signed.
by five.
And then you think that it was going up to the state, right? Is that
Well,
where it
that's
goes
what we were
next?
told. Well, not I think, that's what I was told. That's what we as a board were told, and by the way, deliberative session's already occurred. There's no, the law, I believe, reads, any change to the, God knows I spent enough time on this, any change to that budget can only occur up to printing of the ballot with new information. I have no idea what the new information is.
Right,
The only
so
new
if
information
there's-
I know is Donna Green resigned. That's the only new information. There's no other new information to bring in front of the Tim Lane Regional School Board.
Are we gonna have new information tonight?
About transportation?
No, because we already discussed that.
Well, you did.
We already discussed that.
Wait, so you're thinking that we're gonna change the
Was that what
default
you were
budget-
thinking, Dan?
budget tonight,
What I was
Dan?
Well, what if the,
Oh,
I don't see why we couldn't.
so was there discussion about this, that some of the board members don't know about this? Obviously, Dr.
Talking
Wilson
about
doesn't know.
All right,
We're asking a question.
Transportation's on the thing, so I would expect that if transportation comes in and the number's higher, that we're gonna adjust it. That was my expectation.
We already had that number,
hold on.
Well, you guys sent them back to renegotiate,
and but we already had that number, unless he's got an even higher number than that.
didn't? You
And
guys
that
sent
was
them back to
already in the default.
renegotiate. I mean,
That was already in the default, that's correct. That was addressed. That issue, special ed in transportation was addressed a couple of weeks ago.
not the transportation, not regular transportation. That's the bid we were waiting to have.
And it was addressed, because the number was approximately $500,000. That conversation already happened.
I thought that was special ed.
Oh, that was
Special
the-
ed special ed by itself was
special ed
different.
transportation.
So you got,
We already had a full conversation about this. Dr. Farrer and I had a brief conversation with the consultant, and he's gonna bring it up, but I don't
Well,
know if
regardless,
anything's changed.
it is absolutely irrelevant what is, if anything has
Exactly,
changed.
exactly.
Because the warrants were all signed Thursday night after the special session of the school board. There would be absolutely no reason, and I agree with you, Dr. Wilson, typically I would think there would be some investigation of this. There would be absolutely no reason to say that the default budget was not yet set. We had already signed all the documents. I don't know how you can interpret that any differently. And yes, I think that's beyond the scope of this board to investigate it. I think it needs to go up to, I don't know,
Attorney General's office?
Attorney General's
This is pretty
office?
serious stuff. This is a ballot we're talking about here.
We are holding the ballot of the school board.
School district.
School
School
district.
district.
This is very serious. This is about as serious as it
Because of
gets.
the school board's default budget. That
So-
is exactly what that reads.
This information you have, obviously, we're gonna need this. We're gonna need a copy. If the school board's gonna need a copy, I want a copy to the SAU. This is unbelievable.
I have multiple copies.
You have multiple copies.
I got two.
Okay.
Could the chair ask somebody from the staff to maybe make copies for the board now so we can get them, have them before we leave?
Can we get a copy of this? Could someone please get us a copy of this, of enough copies for board members and you and Dr. Wilson?
I believe we would like to have an opportunity to look into it. We still have, if they have not been printed, and from what I understand, February 16th, which is tomorrow, is the deadline. So I know that Mrs. Belcher, who has, usually the person who takes care of this, has been out for several days. And
fine.
I'm not sure if she'll be in tomorrow.
I'm,
So someone will be taking care of that for sure.
I'll be honest with you, Dr. Wilson, I'm less concerned about the date in terms of them getting printed Monday or Tuesday versus Friday versus the verbiage that I just heard, that the default budget is not been finalized by this board.
What did it say again? Read just that sentence again.
We are still working on finalizing the default budget for the
Period,
Timberlane
period.
ballots.
Yep, okay.
That's very concerning to me. I'm not sure what default budget that hasn't been finalized by this board, but this one has been. So I'm very, wow. I don't even know how this even happens.
Well, I think we have an obligation to look into that and the intent behind it. So,
Okay, I agree, but this is, wow.
And who is gonna look into this?
well, we will, I know.
You people, I respect, yes, you to look at this, and then we may have to look at something else.
I would agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I says, you were on the spot with the AG's office.
This is, you start talking elections and ballots, this is outside the purview of this board. There's a whole division up in the, I think they call the Office of Public Integrity, so pick up the AG's office, they can, that's their call, not Timberlane School Board, but, anyhow. Okay, well, okay, Mr. Arnold, thank you. Wow,
Thank you.
great.
So are you planning to contact the AG's office tomorrow?
I think we need a vote to do that.
I think.
I
we
will
should
motion that we need to, I will motion that the chair contact the AG's office regarding this email. This is just, it's unconscionable. Unconscionable.
I'll second that.
Okay? All in favor of the motion? Okay, I'm sorry, discussion? Kelly, go ahead.
If tomorrow is the deadline, and we see that they're printed, wouldn't this be a little premature to reach out and contact them if they have been sent, they have been printed, or they're in the process of being printed? Could we wait and have Dr. Wilson look into this and get back to us?
Kelly, I don't disagree with you, but if I'm hearing thoughts about, a discussion about the default budget and changing this,
No,
this is,
I understand what you're saying.
you know, so
I'm not saying I
if,
don't
if
want
it,
them to look into it.
if it go, I agree with that. If this goes as simple as, we're looking into it, we're gonna send it up to the printers, that's a different story than if we're sitting here at 9 o'clock and all of a sudden someone starts throwing motions around about default budgets that have already been finalized and signed. Yeah, that's gonna be a whole different story, from my standpoint. And obviously, the board has rights, individual has rights. I am like, I'm beside myself, as people can tell. This is new territory.
Whoever's rights.
I'm just concerned about acting that quickly on it. and
That's
calling the
fine.
Attorney
So we
General.
can, that's fine. We can do that Monday. That's fine. That's fine.
That's all I'm saying.
That's,
Just let
I have
them
no
look into
problem,
it.
whether it's Friday or Monday.
have an
That's
answer for
not
us.
earth-shattering. That's fine.
That's all I'm saying.
One copy for myself.
Okay, thank you.
If we're gonna
So-
continue any of this conversation, we should be doing it in non-public, because now it's really gone beyond the scope.
Yep.
Where it
Now
needs to
you're
go,
passing out
because people
emails.
are interpreting this in the extreme. So I think we have to.
As I am.
We have
I mean,
to,
I agree with you,
All
Dr.
right, let's
Wilson.
go in, I
fine.
will withdraw my motion. If you want to withdraw your
Yes.
second, I'm going to motion to go into non-public under 91
Have a copy.
A:3, paragraph 2, section C.
Okay, so I believe call a roll for non-public?
non-public.
Mr. Belo?
No,
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mrs. Doobie?
Yes.
Dr. Farah?
Yes.
Mr. Guide?
No.
Mrs. Sherman?
No.
Mr. Sparrow?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
No.
Okay, I guess we continue in public then.
That's fine, yeah.
no, I'm not passing these out yet. Now, I have a question. If this is passed out to board members in public session, I think this puts this email out in the public.
Okay,
I think this email is already out in the public.
Well, I guess that would be part of the
Well-
That's
investigation.
not what I
Okay.
heard, and
okay, so
Apparently
what's your
so
point?
I'm just, before I pass this down, I want to make sure the board understands.
Well,
this
I
is
mean,
making
you
this-
can collect them at the end, just like non-public minutes.
Is this board going to collect these at the end of this?
I ripped mine up.
I'm just
I
asking a
didn't wanna
question.
I personally have, to me, I have no intention of sharing the thing except with someone at the state level, me personally.
So then it
So-
should be collected at the end.
That's fine.
That's my opinion.
If-
Whatever,
but
I'm just asking
but
the
it's-
questions, guys.
You can collect it at the end, but I already know that there's a member of the public that has this, that has no obligation to keep this
I understand that.
non-public.
I understand that.
Okay,
But if someone's name is on that,
okay,
shared,
It is.
yeah,
It is.
then that should be in non-public.
From our perspective.
Yes,
But
yes.
it's a member of the public that came that has this, so
Well,
for
and
them, we
that's,
can't do anything. I'm
No.
just letting you, I'm
we can't, but
being aware of that.
for our purposes,
right, I don't see the board taking this from that standpoint, but I agree with Kelly Ward that I would, I have no me personally, I have no trouble seeing, let Dr. Wilson do a little research on this thing. I have no problem if this is just an innocent mistake and this is being sent out there, and that's fine, but if this leads to where it may lead in the next 2 hours, then I think this takes on a whole different life. That's all. So I will, so to me, there's, I don't know what else you want to talk about.
I disagree with you.
Yeah. In terms of what fashion?
And this is my own personal opinion, and if the board disagree, it's fine. I think, personally, this needs to go to the AG's office at the same time that we're conducting
Then make your
an
motion again.
investigation here, because if there's nothing to it, there's nothing to it. I just don't think that something like this,
Then reinstate your motion. If you feel so strongly about it, reinstate your motion.
Well, you can do it individually. It doesn't have to go through a board.
it doesn't have
You don't
to go through a board. I will reinstate my motion
And I'll second it again.
to give Mr. Boyle the authority to go to the AG for the board.
Well, that's fine. Okay, so all those in favor of Dr. Farrell's motion? Aye. 4. Opposed? 4. So the motion fails. So it's still going to happen, obviously. We as individuals have rights, so it's maybe not through a board, but
But you can't represent the board. You can do
That's
it as
okay.
an individual, Brian Boyle of Atkinson.
absolutely.
Representing Timberlane Board.
That's fine. Okay.
Could I just, also, just a point of order here, we do have Mr. Doobie, who has, he intended to be here. His plane was late,
Yep.
so he did not get off to be able to come here in time. He was sworn in through Nancy, and we did do it over the phone for him, because he was very anxious to be able to make sure he represented his town tonight. He did ask if he could possibly use the phone to call in, because we've done that before. We've had that practice. So we made arrangements to have that happen. I don't know if he's available, because I understand he's actually flying. So, but I did want you to know that we do have the phone set up, so if you wanted him to participate, we could try and have that work.
Brian, I believe we have to vote
No,
to do
you
that.
No, it's,
I believe it's at the discretion of the board.
I have the policy here. It's not at the discretion of the board, and there is no vote.
It's per RSA.
What's the policy you have?
BEDC.
Yeah.
Could you
And
read
it
it,
says
please?
board members, okay, first sentence has nothing to do with this. A simple majority of the board shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business. Now, and the title of this is quorum. Second paragraph is board members unable to attend a meeting in person may communicate via electronic means in accordance with policy BEA and RSA 91A23. However, in all circumstances, a quorum shall only be met when a quorum of the board is physically present at the meeting.
Any other time we've done it, we voted.
Okay, that's
any
fine.
other
Dr.
time.
Farrell?
What
Any other
when
time,
did
with
we do
Rob,
I'm fine.
several
Okay,
years ago.
that's fine. Hang on a minute.
I just want to make a point of order. You said that Mr. Doobie took the oath. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did he scribe the oath?
No, he took the oath over the phone because he wasn't able to be here because his plane didn't land.
Okay, so per RSA 42:1, you must take the oath and scribe the oath in order to be sitting as a board member. So,
This board can
unfortunately-
determine that?
No,
You
no,
can
No,
no,
the
determine-
state-
no, no,
state
the
RSA.
state determines that. The state determines that. Per RSA. I have the RSA if you'd like it read.
Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah, I like it.
What was the number again?
Just for sake of completion.
42:1.
what was the number so you can get it?
42:1.
Okay.
Sorry, it's on my phone. RSA 42:1. Every officer shall make and subscribe the oath or declaration as prescribed by Part 2, Article 84 of the Constitution of New Hampshire. And any such person who violates said oath after taking the same shall be forthwith dismissed from office. Shall make and subscribe the oath.
Subscribe? Isn't subscribe say, I will,
Yeah.
on my honor, I will?
Absolutely right.
You think subscribe means
Scribe
write?
is writing. Subscribe
Subscribe
is
is,
not.
Did you
Agree to.
not subscribe the oath when you took it? after you took the oath?
Subscribe is
Yes,
different from scribe.
Excuse me.
Did you write it?
Do you not have people sign the oath of office after they are,
They sign the document and it's notarized.
and that would be subscribing? Mr. Guide, subscribing?
Sure.
It
Right.
has different definitions.
That's all right, we can agree to disagree, that's fine.
It's not,
All right.
it's not agreeing to disagree.
It is.
Okay, so,
So
again,
your point is that you don't think Lee has the right to participate because you think he had to physically be here?
no, we had to physically be here to
Decide.
take the oath, right,
That's what they're saying.
Well, he had to
just like the
sign
rest of
oath.
us did.
It's not me that thinks that. That's the RSA.
Well, I bring it to your attention because if, he was very interested in representing Sandown. And went
That's
out
fine.
of his way to contact us.
Yeah,
and
I chatted with
saying-
him today, and he was planning on being here to get caught up in flights, yeah.
Right. So we have made the effort.
I agree with you, but, wow, a lot's happened in the last couple hours.
Well, I mean,
like it's
if,
been more
if
than a
you
couple
want him
hours.
to participate as,
Well, now, let's look
While-
at it from a different standpoint. So you have a brand-new member, got sworn in when? Over the phone?
today,
And now we want this person to have a conversation on a subject matter that technically you should be abstaining because he wasn't part of it.
well, if he were here, he would vote the way that he would vote. Now,
Oh,
whether
I
he
agree, but-
abstain, I have no idea.
Well, I agree, but usually
But
it's,
he
yeah.
would be new no matter what, if he's on the phone
Chairman's-
or if he were here.
Opinion he should.
Okay,
but-
it's the chairman's opinion. Okay, so it's been my experience in all my years of public service, when you're not involved in something, 99.9% of the time, you abstain. No? You want to comment on something, you wouldn't, you know?
I know, but I wouldn't,
I'm not trying to take his vote, I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
I'm trying to make a point here, you know, so, so it just so happens, as we speak, he's not on the phone right now, so,
Is he calling in when he's available?
I think we could call him.
Call him.
Because I know he's on a plane, and who knows if he's able to call out, I'm not sure. But the technical aspect of this has not really been set up for me, so
yeah, well,
we call him?
We're
Okay.
calling him.
yeah, well,
So I just, because the meeting seems to all of a sudden start, I wanted to make sure that you knew that he was available and he would like to be part of the meeting, so
thank
I'm
you,
just bringing that to your attention.
I appreciate it, thank you. I'm not sure what it has to do with this discussion, though. Because a motion was made, failed, so it doesn't really matter, I guess.
Oh, I thought you were moving on to another agenda item.
Yes, we
so
are.
I just wanted to let you know before we went on into another discussion that
That's fine. Well, what is the pleasure?
I think that we should vote. We've always voted in the past.
Well,
And there were times when Mrs.
But-
Green, if I may, there were times when Mrs. Green has requested to do that, and the board voted no.
We didn't
So-
vote. I don't remember voting no
Yeah.
to have her call in. I never was asked
No.
that.
Well, I know
Was asked that,
specifically,
and I
I know
would not have voted
specifically
no.
that a former school board member from Danville,
You can say
Rob
Rob's
Collins,
name.
yep,
Yeah,
thank
you can say his name.
Thank you. I believe it was on 2 occasions that he called in and we voted for him to do that. So
But
I
you just
think,
read the policy, though.
If I may?
I don't think we voted.
I remember what Mrs. Doobie's talking about with Mrs. Green when she was asking to call in, and it was not a meeting that was in this building, and we had an issue with the technology, if I do remember. It was trying to do it on a cell phone, and the way, it seemed like it was muddy where not everyone could hear it, and that we didn't have microphones and stuff. I do remember that as one of the times. I don't know if that was, I know we voted about Mr. Collins calling in, and well, from what I'm told, we were mistaken on
Having to vote.
having
We
to vote.
didn't
We
vote.
thought we did, but
We've had the lawyer on speakerphone too, so
I think the issue, well, a couple of issues here. The policy that Peter read seems to be, allow that to happen. So the issue,
as long as we have a quorum, which we do.
we clearly have a quorum. So,
Shall we call him?
And this could be a
We
moot
can't
point.
reach him.
You could try to give him a call, and if he doesn't answer, he's
No.
gone.
so,
Is this the number?
So what are we telling him? He's got no voting rights, or
9,
what's the deal?
8. And then the number?
well,
Well, we can let Chairman Boyle speak to him and he can say he should abstain.
Was that set on speaker?
No, it's not.
Well, it's not, again, this is,
Obviously, you can't tell him to abstain.
exactly.
No, no.
That's
It's
what I was
whether or not
suggesting.
we're
I'm
saying
just
that he can
repeating what
vote
was
or
said.
not.
Okay, yeah, okay, then good, let's go with that, if you're gonna go with the rest of me for the night, then, great. If Sue's gonna go with my suggestions, just we'll
Right.
be able to wrap this up pretty quick.
Absolutely, Brian. I
Right.
always go along with you.
Excuse me, can I ask a quick question of
Not
Dr. Farah?
answering.
Did you say that if he did you say something
Is this
about
conference here? This
um,
button?
if he did call in and he wasn't subscribed, that he could lose
It's
his
right
seat? Did you,
No,
what did it say?
Oh,
That was violating the oath that you take. The first part that she was
Right.
reading
No, but
was
it-
about violating her oath.
Correct, that's how I heard it.
it would essentially, it would negate whatever, and he should be aware of this before he
gets on the
votes.
phone.
That it would, well, no, he can get on the phone and listen in on the conversation
Right,
too. But it would negate
Hey
his
Lee, it's
vote.
Sue Sherman calling from the Timberlane Boardroom. I know I'm reaching your voicemail. Hope you're in flight and having a safe trip home. We're just checking in with you, and I guess you could call us back. Bye.
Okay,
I don't know what you expect to have happen. The man's in the air.
all right, okay.
So let's continue.
All right, so let's continue on with the meeting here.
Okay. We tried.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's go into curriculum, second read. We have curriculum people here.
Thank you. Sandy Allaire and Becca Carlson, I believe as you've already heard.
Yeah.
And have a chance to look at the curriculum. So if you have any questions, or this is second read, thank you very much.
We're giving these back.
Okay, yeah, looks like they're ahead of you, so.
I thought at our last meeting, when we had this discussion, that it was gonna go back to curriculum for a look at the Latin.
No, I
See if
think
we-
we never got, I think we just said we'd move it along after the discussion was over. I thought the discussion
We
was
accepted it for
satisfactory.
first read.
Yeah.
You agreed to talk about it in curriculum, but it wasn't, we weren't sending it back.
So
My
again,
understanding was that, the curriculum had already been, the courses had already been approved through the program of studies, which is approved by this board. And so we're bringing the curriculum here, not the courses as a program.
correct.
So the curriculum was approved for a first read, so we're bringing it back for a second read. We can certainly go back and discuss the program, but that was approved by this board through the approval of the program of studies earlier this year.
so this Latin 3 is already in the program of studies.
It is, yes.
Now, this is a little off the subject, but somewhat related. Have the incoming freshmen signed up for the courses for the fall?
Yes, that
They have.
has occurred.
And your upperclassmen have also signed up
Yes.
for courses for the
Yes.
fall?
Yes.
So we should have a pretty good idea right now of what the enrollments look like for courses?
I do not have that information
I
yet.
know you don't
but-
have
right,
that,
the
but
counseling,
it's just
right,
a-
department is working
Just
on that.
kind of,
That we should have that soon, within the next month. We typically get those numbers from counseling, and we start generating our schedules.
because I know what we have going on right now is you have one student and a class that is being taught as 1/5 of that teacher's full-time teaching load, correct?
Correct. For next year, however, we have 2 sections of level 1 this year. So we're projecting likely 2 sections of level 2 next year, accelerated in CCP. And we do not know yet what the Latin 1 enrollment will be, because likely we'll be getting a lot of freshmen signing up, and we don't have those numbers at this time, so.
And in Latin, the first level right now, you have 20 and 11, is that correct?
That's exactly right, yes. Yes.
2 classes.
Yep, yes.
Dan?
I'd like the motion to accept Latin 2, 3, and math topics curriculum for second read, actually for
Fine.
whatever it's called. Adoption. Yes.
Second.
Okay, any other further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, motion? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work.
Okay, transportation bid update. So, as these gentlemen are approaching the podium here, myself and Dr. Farrow went down and, when was that?
Actually,
Last Friday?
Friday.
So last, yeah. And we spent about 69 minutes with these gentlemen, and asked.
Could you explain who you are, just for the public?
Yes, my name's Howard Anderson. I'm a transportation consultant.
Thank you.
Tom Geary, SAU 55 Business Operations Coordinator.
Thank you very much. We had gave us much more in-depth information on our transportation issue here, and I believe we left there with, you were gonna go back to both of the vendors in some form of negotiation and see what they could do about it, because Hampstead is still, I don't know if they've done anything about it yet, but Hampstead was still debating on who they were gonna use for this, provide their service. So, go ahead and give us what's going on.
In fact, I went back to both, met with First Student today. STA, unfortunately, was not interested. Okay.
Because of the single,
Right.
I'm sorry, because of the, then understood because of the,
Schedule A, being it standalone.
right,
versus
they
Schedule
only
B,
want
which
both.
is Hampstead and Tiverton.
Gotcha, thank you.
Correct. And in speaking with First Student, I explained the whole process of, not sure what Hampstead's doing now, probably won't know until the end of March. And with that, would they be willing to hold their price? So that if for some reason you were able to go with Schedule B, because according to the RFP, it was only good for 45 days. And they have agreed to hold their price till the end of March. So that for some reason you decided to go with B, you still have that price, and they won't pull away with it. Schedule A, I asked them if there was anything they could do, without changing, of course, the specifications, to lower their price at all. Basically, what they said was they put their best foot forward on that, and there's nothing they could do to change it.
Okay. Now, from what I understand, if Hampstead does go with them, we save 100,000? Is that what it is?
I have that number. We estimate it to be roughly $123,000 to $125,000.
That the Timberlane would save.
That's the
if-
Timberlane savings.
If Hampstead joined with us.
That's correct.
Are you familiar what's going on with Hampstead right now? Are they negotiating, or?
I presented to their board this past Tuesday. They said that they would be taking action on this on their March 27th meeting.
Okay. Kelly?
If that was something that we chose, a bus company now, and then Hampstead chose the same bus company, is that discount retroactive? Would that take effect?
That's what we asked them to hold up until the end of March, where if we issue a letter of intent to go with First Student, if Hampstead does decide to go, will you hold that pricing until Hampstead makes that decision? And they didn't have to per the specifications. They did oblige, and we did come to an agreement that they would hold that price for us. So if we do, I am coming tonight looking for action on the First Student recommendation. They were the only ones that bid on the Schedule A. However, if Hampstead does join in, there is a significant savings to the Timberlane district.
When do you think you're gonna know that?
March.
Well, we know, from Hampstead, I mean.
March 26th.
Okay.
They plan on taking action.
27.
Is it the
On
27th?
the other hand, if Hampstead goes with STA,
I'm sorry, the 27th. You're right.
those two bids were they were very, very close. So I don't know why we would want to take action before we find out what Hampstead does, when First Student is willing to hold this bid until Hampstead makes their decision.
Hampstead, like Timberlane, only received one bid for the Schedule A for the Hampstead only.
I understand that, but say Hampstead decides they're going with STA. STA, then that kind of defaults to the STA bid, correct?
Well,
Which is
it'll-
the B bid. Which is their, because then it would be their bid, essentially.
No, because it was stipulated in the specifications as well as in the schedule that was the award for both Timberlane and Hampstead.
That's true, but.
But in other words,
Well, we would have some negotiation. I mean, if they now are saying, hey, we're gonna give you this, I don't know, what was the number, say 2.1 million, okay. SDA was at 2.1 million. First Student was around that, but SDA was only bidding on the two together. If Hampstead decides to go, SDA will be comparable or a tad bit lower than First Student if we are both using the same one.
If you both decide to go with Schedule B,
Yeah,
then you're correct.
yeah. So why
If you
would
go
we?
with Schedule A, then they won't be able to go with Schedule B in Hampstead.
Right, they won't
They
be
won't
able
get
to,
the lower
be
amount.
locks them in,
Because it has to be together.
Correct.
yeah.
So we're kind of, it'd be nice if the SAU board got together once in a while and we could
Um,
put these things
well-
jointly.
Let's see.
But it doesn't
So we
come out of
have,
the SAU budget.
today being the 5th, so we technically don't really have to vote on this tonight. Looks like we know, it looks like we know where this is headed. And would like, obviously, it'd be nice if Hampstead went in a certain direction that would be to our benefit.
Right. I would say, speaking from the SAU side, is 3/4 of the buses belong to Timberlane.
Sure.
A quarter belong to Hampstead.
Right.
In the specifications, we've also outlined that we're requiring brand-new buses at the beginning of the contract. Now, we can't just go to any lot on 125 and pick up this many school buses. We have to get in the pipeline to start manufacturing.
Right.
That's the urgency from our perspective, is to be able to start this contract with the new buses. And we would be looking at, we're already up against the wall with that. We would be looking at trying to execute that immediately after Hampstead makes their decision on the 27th.
Well, and as long as that, is that
Why don't we authorize the
process,
chairman to
that
speak
thought
to the
process for the people at home watching, which makes sense,
Could talk to Hampstead.
we were told by the expert here that the fact that we're asking for new buses, which is nice for Timberlane, it's not really a cost type thing, because it's not, we're not paying more to get new buses, put it that way. We would want new buses because it's a multi-year contract. We don't want a bunch of buses that are already 8 to 10 years old. Correct?
It's correct. I mean, when you start getting 10 years old, the maintenance program can be a good one.
Yeah.
But just like anything else, you end up, the maintenance goes a little higher every year. So it kind of weighs itself out.
Mm-hmm.
And
So-
I'd just like to make one more point, too, is looking at the meeting schedules between the two boards.
Yeah.
If we wait for Hampstead on the 27th, the following meeting for Timberlane is April 5th. Now, if we brought First Student and asked them to hold their price until the end of March, and then we would have to engage their conversation again and ask them, well, can we have a little bit longer? I don't think it's fair to do to the vendors if we keep asking them and making them wait for a decision.
Well, I would think that our meeting is March 20.
I just think it's poor business practice is what I'm getting at, is to ask them for an extension on what they've already given,
Right,
and go
to
back
March
to them
27th.
again and ask them,
You asked them for extension till the end of March.
correct.
Okay. We got plenty of time.
Well,
If
by
we're
March
waiting on
20
Hampstead to make a decision to influence the Timberlane decision, the next Timberlane board meeting isn't until the 5th of April.
I understand that, but we have a meeting on the 22nd. You don't think you don't think you're going to have some idea by the 22nd what Hampstead is going to do in terms of bids?
The chair of the Hampstead School Board said that they were going to take action on this on their March 27th meeting.
I understand that they're going to take action at that meeting, but just as we went out to bid, and I know they're not going out to bid, we knew weeks beforehand who we had coming in for vendors. So you don't think there's not going to be any idea until the night of the 27th who Hampstead's looking at? I mean, you don't. I guess I'm just thinking by the 22nd, I would think that Hampstead's going to have some idea who they're looking at, or you're going to have some idea. So that would be enough. We'd certainly have more information than we do now. That's all.
But still a guess.
Maybe,
It's a
but
guess,
it's
but
still
it's-
not
It's a guess,
official
but
action
it's-
taken by the board, is
Well,
what I'm trying
well,
to
but it's-
convey.
No, I understand that. It's still a guess, but at least we have something to go off of.
You mentioned 2 minutes ago, good business practice. How is this good business practice, February 15th, to put all your cards on the table when we have 6 weeks left? When we really could use.
I think I explained getting in the pipeline for manufacturing for the buses, that's where we're.
I understand what you explained, but I'm just saying that we're clearly because as far as I'm concerned, we haven't, hindsight's 20/20, we haven't played this out too well yet. You know, obviously we had, they had all the answers, so to speak. You know, it was, Mrs. Sherman.
Can we let Dr. Wilson speak, because she does deal with Hampstead, so maybe she'd have some more information.
Okay.
Just for a little bit of clarity, one of the constraints is Hampstead Board does not meet until the 27th, because their first meeting is voting night, and they don't meet when the voting is taking place on the 13th. So their next scheduled meeting for them to talk about it is on the 27th, which is why they had to put it out that far. They also have requested to make sure that, you know, it's very similar to what they did with the food service company, the lunch company, going out to see what Hampstead could find. They have instructed, you know, Tom Gary to go out and to look and see if there's any other solutions besides just the bids that came through. We know that we're very constrained right now in terms of one choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so they know that you have a choice beyond them in terms of the STA, because that is both. They're very interested in looking at, again, the first student bid, but they were also wanted to see if they had any other options. So that's where we're kind of at with Hampstead, but they are, the only time they can talk about it as a board is the 27th.
And I was well aware of that. What I'm saying is that by the 22nd, when our board meets, Hampstead, even though they have not officially had a meeting or talked about it, because you're coordinating transportation for both, you're going to have some idea whether Hampstead has other options, which would better inform us on the 22nd as to which way we're going to go.
I can't speculate on the direction the board is going to take.
No, you
How
don't
about
even,
this is
you do
Timberlane,
not,
just-
you do not have to speculate on a direction. I'm not.
Well, we're trying to
what are
save
we
it.
asking
I
for?
understand, but if this is Timberlane, right? So if we go with whatever Schedule A is, because I wasn't here for the first bid, and Hampstead ends up going there, we still are going to save $100K, or whatever it is, 125,000.
I had 123,000 for
Okay.
rough calculation.
If they enter into it by a certain date.
If Hampstead, is that what it was? If they enter in it by a certain date?
Right, is that what you just said?
If they vote by the end of March to go.
The end of March. Okay.
First student held that price longer than they had to. They made an extension until they hold it until the end of March.
And I guess, Dan, what I'm trying to do is make sure we get that, because I'd hate to find out that Hampstead enters its contract April 10th. And they say, well, you know, guys,
They're
if you
trying
did
to
it,
get the savings.
right.
Yeah.
See, if you let us know 10 days ago, we would have had that. So I'm hearing this word about best business practice, I'm saying, so we're being penalized by accident by trying to act quicker. And
talk to the
one
Hampstead
would
chair.
hope that if Hampstead said, if Hampstead exercises that, because if they don't meet till March 27th, they don't execute a contract till April 27th, one would hope that Timberlane could still recognize those savings. That's all.
Well, one thing I did ask them today at the meeting was that, especially for the buses, do they need a contract to order them or a letter of intent from the district? They said a letter of intent would work.
What does that mean?
What it means is you.
Oh, I understand what letter of intent means. Oh, these people are willing to order a bunch of buses, saying, well, the boards gave us a letter of intent.
Yes.
You know, again, I'm not a bus company expert, but I do work in a company that orders a lot of parts and
Right.
materials and such. And from the time we get an order for something to like when we can place a major purchase order is not a day.
Oh, of
It's
course.
not, you know,
Sure.
so if they have I would speculate that if they have a letter of intent, they would start the process of getting the paperwork together and yada, 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 but not place an order, actually physically place an order until they actually had a commitment.
Okay.
But that's just how companies I work for.
Sure.
Sue has suggested at least 3 times that I've heard that we talk to Hampstead.
I don't know why the chairman doesn't reach out to the chairman. I could call, want me to call her?
Yes, yes.
The Hampstead chair and say, let's talk, chair to chair. And find out.
Fine with me. I'll be happy to do that. I'll be happy to make
Let's
that
do
phone
that.
call.
Right.
And I have
That's a good
phones. I really don't need that one. I have a very nice phone.
With a red phone.
But at any rate, I guess that's you as our consultant, it's pretty clear to me where we're heading. I just want to make sure that we are protected.
And you are. I mean, if you, again, as Tom said, if you decide to go with Schedule A right now, and then by the end of March, they go with Schedule B, First Student has already said they would hold the Schedule B pricing
But through March.
through the end of March.
Right,
Correct.
and my fear is that Hampstead, because they've got themselves unintentionally boxed in a calendar here, when that board doesn't meet till the end of March, unless they make a decision right then and there.
Well, that's what they plan on doing.
I bet, again,
But that's what
chair
we're
to
hoping
chair,
for.
you should talk.
Well, I'll be happy to do that. That's where I'm going with this.
Why don't we just do what Sue suggested, have you reach out to the chair of Hampstead, and then we'll revisit it at our next meeting on, what is it, the 8th? The 8th.
No, yeah, sure. Great.
Just one more point to add. I mean, I agree with all this, no disagreement. If it comes down to having a necessity to call an emergency meeting, please remember that the BudCon meets the 29th. So that'll just be a difficult night, just logistics-wise.
Sure, okay.
So if you want to wait, if you wanted to call an emergency meeting after that Tuesday, Wednesday's perhaps better.
I'll be happy to talk to the Hampstead chair, and I can't even imagine why we won't have some kind of meeting of the minds so we would know for March 8th.
Can I just, like a scenario here, just curious. If Hampstead decides to go with another company for whatever reason,
We just lost a couple of bucks.
but you're still gonna have a contract with First Student. You're still you have something that you have an agreement with them. It just is a little bit more than if Hampstead had come in,
Okay,
correct?
I agree.
So I don't think it hurts you to make a decision either way, because you're either gonna have a contract with First Student, because STA is off the table, right?
Correct. That's correct.
So your choice is First Student. The choice is whether or not Hampstead agrees to help take some of that cost off.
Right.
That's their decision.
That's their decision, absolutely.
So your decision is still gonna be First Student.
So why would we play that card tonight? What are we gaining out of that?
Think about what you're gaining. You've
I
got
am.
the decision made.
Okay.
You've got a letter of intent. You have the ability to go and say to them in good faith, we're ready to go with you. You've done your due diligence. We've done ours. We're ready to accept the bid, and they can start working on it for your sake.
Okay, so your suggestion, that's fine, is to proceed under the letter of intent avenue instead of authorizing a contract.
Well, I think the same thing is accomplished if they will accept.
And if I could, we wouldn't sign that contract until we know, we're incentivized to get this savings too, as part
Right.
of our job performance.
Right.
There's no benefit for us not to seek this cost savings for Timberlane. So
No.
we would be issuing that letter of intent to simply get in the pipeline for the buses and be able to start planning summer programs, routing, and things like that.
Sure.
But still though, let's say Hampstead goes with STA, okay?
Okay. Hampstead goes with STA, yes.
Then
Well,
the two
there is
prices.
There's no option.
There's no STA only bid.
There's no only bid from STA.
Right now, there is no.
Only bid, but let's say that, and again, this is why the chair, it would make sense to have the chairs talking. If Hampstead, I know there's no Hampstead bid only for STA, but there is a joint bid. So if you knew that Hampstead was going to do STA, then we could perhaps do this as a joint bid. It would give us some.
Hampstead's seeing STA.
What?
Because if it's a joint bid, and we're not, we only have.
Hampstead's not looking at bids anymore.
They looked at the same bids we
No,
saw.
no. Yes, they looked at the bids, but they are going out without bidding right now, aren't they? Are they not? That's what I heard
I
at the
don't
last
know, maybe
meeting.
the chair should talk to the
Conversation
chair.
very similar to what you tasked us to do, is see what else can be done, right? So we had the bid prices and the sealed bids. You sent us back to see what else, can we knock anything off? Can we negotiate a better price? And I'd like to think that both boards asked us to do the same type of work.
I didn't get that impression. I got the impression that Hampstead rejected the bids.
No, it wasn't a rejection.
It wasn't a rejection,
No.
so they haven't rejected their bids.
No.
But are they and they're looking for others?
We spending this much time
I
about
know,
the board.
let
All right.
the chairs talk, we don't
Let's
know.
okay,
We weren't at the meeting.
Yeah, let's let the chairs
Did we
talk.
live stream into their meeting and hear what their discussion was? Any of us?
Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
I'm done.
Well,
Okay,
I'm
so
not done.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go
We
ahead.
didn't, so let the chairs do their work instead of all this assumptions.
Sorry,
Okay.
I mean, I'm done. You're right, I'm done.
So, that's where, I'll be happy to call Karen Yasanka, correct? It's not Steve.
It's correct, Karen
Yeah.
Yasanka.
I'll be happy to call Karen Yasanka. At the pleasure of the board?
It's fine.
Great, awesome. All righty, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But nice, good job. And we understand you guys are doing what we can. I'm still, as I pointed out to you guys a couple weeks ago, I'm still dumbfounded about, there's only, for anyone in TV land, there's a great opportunity for school buses. Apparently, no one's in this business. There are not many people in this business, and we're now very limited as a school district, you know.
And we are gonna hear back from you soon, right? Because you're finishing up your consulting work and the routing.
I am.
Sue? Thank you.
Okay. I see Jeff here?
He's right, he's here, he's in the dark room.
Jeff, come on out of there, you know?
Fun to hear.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Come on there.
Thanks. I
Jeff,
have been.
do we,
Thank you.
want to talk about an internal controls audit, Jeff,
Yes.
okay? The board, wow,
Do you want me to refresh? I have the minutes here.
that's even better. Much better than my memory, please, thank you.
Where was this? September 7th? These are from the minutes from September 7th. The board discussed the internal controls RFP and voted that the RFP should be posted in March with a closing date of April 15th.
Right.
With bid recommendations to the board by May 5th.
Yes.
Can we just
Okay.
clarify that date for September? Two dates.
Oh, the
minute-
RFP?
Oh, the RFP should be posted in March. Closing date of April 15th.
Thank you.
Bid recommendations to the board by May 5th.
Okay,
Was
so,
there anything there?
The opening of bids at the school board meeting.
so do you remember this, take a ride down memory lane, do you remember this conversation back in September, Jeff?
Sure.
About the internal audit, yep.
How can I help you?
Well, I guess it will go out then.
So what I'm asking is, so have you, well, obviously we go through you. I would assume you would be the person that would be drafting this RFP.
RFP's been drafted and the board approved it. And the date that would go out.
We did, right? I
Right.
remember that discussion now.
Awesome.
Right, and the
Wait for
reason we chose those dates was we talked about letting it, we have enough information, et cetera, et cetera. That's why we decided to wait till May 5th.
Great. Awesome.
They had left over.
Yeah, I think that,
Thank you.
first grade class.
There would be enough green in the room. Can't read through the red.
Yeah, no good, huh?
I believe this is the form and
Okay, would you just kind of, I'm looking at the, quite honestly, what I'm looking for is the scope, what the scope of this review would be. I'm seeing auditor qualifications, is it on the other side?
Requirements for
Deliverables.
review, deliverables, that
There
section.
you go. But these are kind of general, though. What are your thoughts on this thing, Jeff? I'm looking, current conditions of areas reviewed, or what are the areas? Testing methodology, areas of deficiency, so what is your thought process here as our business manager?
I think you'll find a concise statement under requirements for review.
Okay. Oh, there you go, thank you.
Ledger, financial reporting,
There you go.
budgeting, treasury functions.
I hope you're all happy with this. This has been approved.
Considering that,
Yeah. Okay.
Now, just so you're aware, which you probably remember, that the bid policy is right now sitting in our packets because there's gonna be a change probably to the bid policy, or there were some changes to the bid policy, so just wanna make sure that it gets updated, since they'll be looking at it when this RFP goes out.
Will they be testing? Will they be
Sorry?
taking a sample? Will they be taking their own bid as a sample of the new policy? They might.
I don't know, they might, I don't
Exciting.
know.
Okay.
I don't think it's a really huge change there, though. We're just added posting to the district website.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Um,
exactly.
Well, yeah, but there was something else that we were gonna discuss about this, because it doesn't follow the New Hampshire School Board Association model policy right now.
Is it about the amount of something?
No, it was about the school board, reserving the right to refuse bids.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So,
If that policy is in effect at the time that this bid goes out, that's why there's a link to be sure that all of our current bidding practices are captured.
Perfect.
And we can update that as, and if the policy, when the policy is updated.
perfect. Great. Okay. So you're saying back in September, we approved to do this, and now and to put it out in March?
In March, with a closing date of April 15th.
Okay,
Opening date of May.
great.
I think the only thing,
Recommendations May 5th.
I think the only thing left will be to review what funding is left for this and how that impacts the scope. I know that we had looked at our audit line to draw funds from, and I thought there would be some additional funds available to fund this project as well. And since then, I'm really not sure how our audit bill is going to come in. Because this request had been made, our audit team and I have discussed looking at current existing internal controls as part of their review process as well, and which is generally good practice. And in addition to that, I know that our audit firm has been preoccupied by a number of distractions, which I certainly, they're well within their rights to bill us for, primarily being the ongoing harassment of their office by former board member Mrs. Green relating to alleged budget overages. And I don't know what the impact of that is going to be, but I would suspect that they may want to do additional testing.
Well,
So that may run into additional funds, so it would be good
Oh,
to.
additional billing.
wait a minute.
Additional billing.
Cost
Wait a
the
minute.
district more money
Wait a
because they're
minute.
gonna go back and.
Wait a
look.
minute. I think it was under the superintendent's recommendation, they reached out to me via email. I spoke to, about a week ago, the lead auditor, and I
Mr.
just.
Campo.
There you go. And, thank you. I said, you don't work for Mrs. Green or the other individual that was, so they should not be doing work for people who are reaching out and saying, I need this information.
Nope. When ongoing allegations are made, and they were made, by the way, at the deliberative session, and just to put this board on notice, you should be advised that allegations against the practices in my office are not taken lightly. And I do not appreciate those false allegations, but when those allegations are made, the audit firm is not accountable to the person making the allegation, but certainly is well within their professional code of ethics to conduct any testing they may choose to do to make themselves satisfied that the allegations are false.
Okay. Well, that makes no sense to me. If somebody is going on their own and looking for additional information, challenging, well, that's what they were doing.
It's not information. If
if any sort of allegation were made, if anyone from this board thought that there was some impropriety on the part of the business office and that were reported to the audit firm would go and look into it. They may not be accountable to anyone individually for a response, but anytime such an allegation would be made, it would be within their professional scope and ethical obligation to
To take
validate.
direction from an individual board member?
Not direction, I'd see it as checking it.
Is that what you're saying?
Nope. I am saying that they would be remiss in not validating that everything is okay. That's not an accountability to the person making the allegation, but they are well within their professional scope of duty to conduct further testing to make sure that there are no issues. So I don't know what that's going to run into for additional funding. I don't know what the additional costs are going to be. I would hope, Mr. Chairman, you're not suggesting that our auditors ignore.
No, oh, absolutely not. I just wanted to be very clear.
Excuse me.
That it's costing the district. Sorry.
Well,
Or it could be
Mr.
costing the
Chairman
district.
is very concerned about this. In my line of work, when people you should be able to defend your own work.
I can defend my work.
The auditors should be able to defend their own work. If an individual board member, without the blessing of this board, or, if the superintendent of schools says, okay, that's different. If an individual board member, we all know this, has zero authority, zero. So you have to have a board vote. So if they are responding in crossing Ts and dotting Is, saying, hey, we spent another 100 hours, I got a problem paying that bill.
But you want them to, you don't want them to ignore those kinds of complaints, do you, Brian?
But let's say you had all
Want
nine
them
people.
to ignore those
I mean,
complaints.
Basically, yes. I expect them to stand behind their work. I'm not, they were hired by this board. And shame on them if all of a sudden some board member is saying, that's not good enough. Well, I better check this out. Wait a minute.
I don't think what he's saying is that the board member was accusing them of doing something wrong. The board member was accusing us of doing something wrong and them not seeing it. So they were looking into that.
To make
No,
sure.
That's the way I see it.
No, Cal, I agree with you. No, well, yeah, the individuals, I agree, are obviously complaining about your office.
Yeah, the business.
It's an ongoing basis.
Over a long period of
That
time.
makes no sense to me.
It's
Zero.
not me either.
Makes
We're in agreement.
So that's up to the board, and if an individual board member wants to, which I know has happened in the past, approach the board and say, hey, this is what we should be doing as a board, and the board says we're not doing it, well, you're not doing it.
If I have someone within my office feel that there's a weakness in internal controls, or a suspicion that something isn't being addressed, or that there's a failure of our internal procedures, they receive questionnaires and they report that to our audit firm. And if our audit firm feels that they'd like to conduct additional testing to make sure that those controls are in place, they're exercising diligence to do that. And when and if, with respect to the idea that you're putting forward, if they've ignored it or said, well, we'll take a peripheral look at that, when those complaints are ongoing, harassing in nature, and ending up on the Commissioner of Education's desk, which apparently Mrs.
About an
Green-
audit.
Yep.
Yes. There's not much apparently that cannot end up on the Commissioner of Education's desk. It has nothing to do with educating students. Apparently. Now, what authority does he have over it? I don't know. I don't think he has any. However, the audit firm at some point has to say, you know what, we're gonna look into this. See if you can document it, do what you can do. That's on me. I don't mind that. But if it requires additional documentation, and that's additional time on their part, and I can assure you, they're very reasonable.
Well, I guess instead of us theorizing about this all night long, we should probably find out exactly what the heck we're talking about here. You know, whether we're talking about 1 hour or 80 hours, and from what I understand this gentleman's gonna be in this building tomorrow.
Correct. Yep. It's very reasonable.
Short.
Sorry?
How much are we short?
We may not be, I don't know, but I think that it would be good to make a determination as to where we are relative to what the expected scope of another project may be.
So I'm sorry, no, what's this gentleman's name again?
Mr. Campbell.
Campbell. So, when was he coming tomorrow? Was he gonna be here all day, he said?
No, probably mid-morning.
Morning? Because I told him I wouldn't come down.
I mean, you can ask him.
Introduce myself to him, and now that you're telling me this, I guess I should ask him, so, kind of money are we talking about here?
I thought you were stopping by anyway.
Well, yeah, I was gonna stop by and, hey, what the heck, in the neighborhood.
They're nice, he's a very, very decent guy, so I don't think that it's going to be out of proportion, but I would like to know what that
Oh,
additional
I would
work is going
too.
to be.
I definitely would like to know.
And I don't think the perspective is that she's directing the work. I think that it's been made abundantly clear, she is not directing the work. But at some point, this board will probably have to get used to the idea that for as long as these allegations, false allegations and harassment occur to our auditors or vendors or attorneys, for all intents and purposes, you're gonna be looking at combat pay. Because no one deserves the nonsense that that's being put forward. False, misleading allegations, statements made in public. So it really shouldn't come as a surprise that it may cost a little bit more because for whatever reason, these allegations are put forward. So, and if that is outside the scope of what they'd intend to do, what they'd budgeted to do, I don't expect that they're gonna be unreasonable in their billing.
Sure.
But I think that it's something that as a district, it's very unfortunate that it continues to cost us money. And it's unfortunate that it continues to have that impact on our vendors.
Well, I appreciate the heads up. Jim?
So, can I ask a question then? We received a right to know from the Department of Education with regards to legal expenses involving the tripod survey. So, would that have somehow been triggered by a complaint and somehow is coming back down to the auditors? I'm a little confused about the Department of Ed getting involved in legal expenses for a survey.
I'm fairly confused about the Department of Education getting involved in many things that don't involve educating our students in the district. That's reasonable. This has nothing to do with legal, this has to do with audit.
Yeah.
Well, this is talking about expenses, which has to do with where they are coming out of in a budget, in an SAU budget versus a Timberlane budget. I was kind of.
I don't know that they'd be I don't know,
big jump.
I can't cite the right to know request from the Department of Education, but I can't imagine that.
I have it here.
No, I can't imagine that it would have to do.
It's unrelated to what
Yeah.
Jeff is speaking towards, I believe.
Because I think
not
tripod is just one of many of our legal matters, so I don't think that would have an impact on the budget. I think there'd be two separate things, which just demonstrates.
Expenses are budget. It's a cost.
Sure.
So I was just trying to see if this somehow tied into what you're speaking to.
If it could tie in, I think that would be fantastic because there'd be some connection, some nexus, and there's not. There are a bunch of things that appear to be in front of the Department of Education that have nothing to do with each other, that have nothing to do with educating our students.
To back to your point then, Jeff, so to bring this back to the beginning here, we don't have a hard number what our normal annual audit is.
Oh, we do.
We do, okay.
Yeah, that's usually 26, 27,000.
We have
Okay.
historical.
And then there's gonna be, you're thinking there might be some added costs which could affect the monies that would go towards
this.
the internal control audit. Right?
Correct.
And how much money do you have any idea where we are right now, or?
Well, I can't speculate as to where we are now, and, quite frankly, I don't know what will end up on Governor Sununu's desk tomorrow involving our auditors, or President Trump's desk involving our auditors. If this ongoing pattern of harassment continues, they may have more things to look into. I don't know.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, were you expecting some kind of monies or something? I was
No, listen, we've gotten plenty of money from the governor's office. I'm very happy with that. Our grants were approved, completely unrelated, but those infrastructure grants were approved, so.
That's good. Well, that's good. Peter?
Well, this is all interesting. I don't think there's anything really actionable, and given that this request for proposal won't even be back until end of April.
And you've already approved it.
I mean, we already approved, that's fine. But all I'm saying is, like, this whole, the worrying is a little bit preliminary. We got plenty, as a group, we have plenty of time to worry later, and we're not gonna do anything about, I don't think we can do anything about this now anyhow, so just.
No idea what the kids are gonna come in at.
Right, so for now, we can
just have
worry
to
later.
see- Right, if we have money
We have
in
money.
May,
I'm here at the pleasure of the board.
if the
Right.
audit bill is finally done,
Kim?
In terms of the audit, in 2017, we expended $31,856. Right now, we've got $47,000 in the budget. So we do have quite a bit in that budget. They'd have to do quite a bit more work for us to not be
Well-
able to fund this audit.
I believe we put extra money in that budget, that line, because we were anticipating this
Internal audit.
internal audit. It had been discussed previous to
Yep.
this board's making the decision. So they put some money over there, planning ahead, planning for the future.
I don't
that-
know if that was put in for that purpose in particular. We have, we also have some GASB reporting requirement,
Oh, yeah,
retirement reporting,
guaranteed for- Yeah.
retirement reporting
Yeah, yeah,
requirements
yeah.
for,
What was your estimate? Did we have an estimate back as a September, what we thought internal audit would be?
no.
No, we didn't. But they did put some, I know they put some money in,
Okay.
not all of that.
But as a result of,
We have it, we have it. We don't, we don't.
as a result of the understanding for a desire for an internal controls audit, Mr. Campo and I spoke as to the direction that was going in and what the board was looking for. And as part of their audit work, they focused on some of the processes that we have in our internal
Yeah, he
control
mentioned that to
structures.
me. Yeah.
Which was,
72.
I thought, a very good and proactive
I agree.
measure on his end.
I agree.
So, very effective.
Open a window. Open the
I don't think it's even actionable here right now.
No,
Do we
no,
have
I
some
just,
others?
well, you probably have some idea of the cost of
Yep.
this audit tomorrow, right, when he comes in?
Well, I have
Is he almost done with the audit?
I don't know that he's undertaken testing on that additional part, and I don't know what else would be coming in that
Okay.
he would be looking into. Because it's, we're all subject to surprise from
Okay.
Mrs.
All right,
Green.
super. So we will,
One more question, since you, Brian, you mentioned you're gonna be in tomorrow to talk
yes,
to Mr.
I'd like
Knapp.
to meet this gentleman, yeah.
So, I heard the audit isn't done yet. I would appreciate it if you could stress that we'd really like to get this done.
He mentions your name. He said, you used to call him every week, and I said, I haven't done that to you. He did, just so you know.
Because Mr. Belo wanted it
He
done.
wanted it
Because I
done.
wanted to get it done.
That's what he
and
told
be
me.
deliberative.
That's what he told me.
Chairman.
And we did.
Board wanted
You
to
did.
get it done.
The board did.
Yes,
I
the
agree.
board
So-
made the chairman call.
It would still be good to get it out before
So
the ballot.
he was giving you a comment and taking a shot at me.
Nonetheless,
So that's
I'm
okay.
just asking, you know,
He was a
I'm
nice guy.
asking you to stress to, please get it
Sure,
done, or at least a letter.
absolutely.
We do have a letter.
Oh,
We do have
I'm
a
on
letter.
oh, didn't know that.
I'm on it.
We do. We have a letter that will go into the annual report with the status update. Mr. Belo, I am surprised that you would think that I would overlook communication from the auditor for our annual reports.
I
Yeah.
apologize.
So-
I apo-
At any rate, all right, thank you.
Be back.
We're good.
Thank you.
So I'll see you sometime tomorrow about them. So let's see if we can plow through some policies here. So we have some second read, first read.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the first reads. DKA payroll procedures, KCD public gifts and donations, JICFA hazing, JLF reporting child abuse and neglect.
Second.
Okay,
Again, as first read.
great. Any discussion? Great. All those in favor? Unanimous. Great. Second read, and I think this is what you were looking at, the only one that,
1 through 9.
yeah, 1 through 9, but there was what,
It was the bidding requirements. I went back because there were questions about this, and I did look at the model policies for the New Hampshire School Board Association, and they do say the school board as opposed to the superintendent.
How about making a motion?
just to maintain the right to, what's it, what comment you talking
Reserves the
about?
right to reject all bids. And I'm sorry, I thought I had it with me. I had the model policy, but yeah, I think it was in each case, well, I'm not sure about the first paragraph, I think, is superintendent, but when you move down to paragraph 4, it says the school board reserves the right, as opposed to the superintendent in paragraph 4. New Hampshire School Board Association policies.
So the intent then, obviously, is the school board, the superintendent does it 99% of the time, so on that 1% of the time, the school board maintains that, right, in case something. Right, go ahead, Peter.
I make a motion to send DJE back to policy.
Second.
committee.
Okay, great, super.
Let's get that
I'll
straight.
get, I'll get it. Sorry, I thought
Good
I had it
motion.
with me.
Okay, all in favor of Peter's motion? Go back to policy. Opposed? Unanimous. Abstention?
No, I had voted yes.
Okay, thank you.
My hand goes down slower.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to accept GCIC professional staff visitations and conferences, DJE bidding requirements.
Not that one.
No, not bidding requests, sorry, I apologize.
One, two, four.
GCID, professional activities of teachers, GCK, professional staff assignments and transfers, GCNA, supervision of professional staff, AA, school district legal status, JICD, student discipline and due process, IHAK, character and citizen development, and IMDA, patriotic exercises for secondary, or enactment through secondary, adoption.
Second.
discussion? None? Great. Oh, sorry,
No, that was seconded, right?
that was seconded.
Yeah.
Hearing none? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Hey, we got through it in less
That
time.
was nicely done. Okay, administrator's report, so this one's gonna be a little different here, Dr. Wilson, because
Not me?
yes, because I think you're, I've asked, which I think you're prepared to talk about, to bring up the
I have it.
the topic of bullying, and especially in light of what happened down in Florida. I think, obviously, this probably is gonna, the superintendent is, I think, gonna have a more thorough type thing. I think,
Perhaps another.
you know, probably in the future, because, again, in light of what happened down in Florida, I think. But,
For my report,
please.
one is the Timberlane Regional High School Baseball Boosters Club came to SLT, and they're requesting to continue their sign sponsorship fundraiser. As you know, they always have some signs that they sell, banners, and they put them on the left side of the left field on the fence. They've been selling advertising, and they're about 3x5 signs and banners that have been hung on the left field baseball fence. It is a fundraising activity. They use the money to sponsor some extra things that they do for the students, such as sandwiches and drinks for the away games, scholarships for seniors, and in the preseason, perhaps some umpire fees. So usually when the board approves this, it's for a two-year span of time. So they're coming, asking that you approve this for the next 2 years. And I know SLT had some questions and then approved it.
Awesome.
Okay?
Kelly's ready to make a motion. Are
I'll
we
make a
doing?
motion that we,
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Thanks.
Thank you. And then Dr. Metzler asked that I share with you the process that we use for investigating complaints on bullying. And just to let you know, the bullying law has been out for a number of years now. It's got to be at least 15 years. And every district used their model policy and developed their own policies. It's JICK. We've been using it for a number of years. It's a rather lengthy policy because it does include some procedure in it. And most districts felt instead of breaking that apart, we just left it all on the policy document. But I want you to know that in terms of what the schools do, there's a very tight schedule and practice that they have to follow when there are reports of bullying. And it all starts with a report or a complaint, and anybody can make it. It could be a teacher, it could be a paraprofessional, it could be a parent. And when that is received, the principals have an obligation to look into it, to investigate it. And they have a certain amount of time to inform parents, I think it's 5 days, to inform parents that there has been a complaint and an investigation, and they are looking into it. They send that notification to both the student who is considered the victim and the other student who would be considered the bully. Or if it's a group of students, everybody gets that letter. And all that says is there's an investigation. It doesn't say what's happening, it just says there's an investigation of something that has occurred. They have a number of days to complete that investigation. Once it starts, they have 5 days to complete it. And they can be allowed an extension if the superintendent grants that. So if there's justification, if there's a lot of people that were involved and perhaps they have to talk to, more than one student, they could be extended in terms of the timeline. It's another 7 days the superintendent could give them to do that. In most cases, we can get these investigations done fairly quickly, within the week. So after the investigation, and they talk to different people, they get the facts, they really look at the situation, the principal has the discretion to determine whether or not it is a substantiated case of bullying. So they make the determination based on the investigation that they go through. If it is substantiated, there is always some type of remediation which is required or looked into, which could be including anything from counseling to ways in which students can work together, because we like to use it as teachable moments as well. It's students make mistakes all the time, and we use it as ways to help them learn what's a better problem-solving activity, or how can they achieve the goal of working together and not having the bullying behavior occur. So that remediation is pretty much spelled out within the case of that bullying situation. Parents are communicated, both sets of parents are communicated about the investigation, whether it was substantiated or not. We do not share what the consequences were with both sets of parents. Only the parent who is associated with that child gets their information. So, and that's part of our FERPA laws, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So while it's very frustrating for some parents, it's what we have to follow in terms of we can't say what happened to the perpetrator or the bully, but we have taken care of it. And, those things are part of our report to the parents. We often say it's been handled, and a lot of the times we're working with the parents anyway. We're talking with them. It's not as formal as, oh, gee, I have to just do an investigation and not talk to them. A lot of times parents are very much involved in the process. So we have consequences, and the counselors are very involved in a lot of that. Sometimes if the student, depending upon their developmental age, depending upon if they have an IEP, how serious the nature of the offense is, we put things in place to help those students. So again, it's case-by-case situation. Bullying, by definition, is a pretty prescribed definition. It's in the law. It's not just, every situation you run across, but, it really is determined by if there is physical harm or if there's harm to the student's property. There is also, it causes emotional distress. We often will look at that situation, definitely for students. It could interfere with their educational opportunities because they want to avoid certain students and not want to be in that class. It could also create a hostile educational environment, and those are the things that maybe you find out after you start talking to the kids. Or it substantially disrupts the education of all students. And in some cases, in cases of cyberbullying, which we are now required to look into, that disruption can be school-wide, and that's significant. So we take those things, very seriously. It used to be thought that bullying had to be a pattern over time. Well, sometimes that's true, but it also could be one event, and that one event could be significant. So we try to look at it from the lens of the incident and the students who are involved. If it is substantiated, again, the report goes to the superintendent's office, where we track that information, and we are required to also report that out to the Department of Education at the end of the year. In our typical reporting fashions, they want to know the numbers. We never share any of the details. We never share any of the names. So that's pretty much what our policy entails. You can read, if you want to read through it a little bit more in detail, you can kind of see, how tight it is in terms of timelines. And that's what we do in terms of respond and responses. I don't know.
I appreciate it, because that's,
If that
some of these
helps you.
people, because my kids are older, so I haven't, I'm way past that stuff. other issues, but, my concern, so if I understand this right, so it's each principal handles it, and then if there's some kind of appeal process, they go up to the SAU?
Yes, yeah.
Because obviously, since I've been on, nothing's come in front of this board, so obviously the school board is not even part of an appeal on a student thing, because evidently this office.
It could get to you just like anything does.
I see.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, this is a process that kind of goes through several steps.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot, frankly, and, you know, when this law first came out, we had a lot more cases where we would call them substantiated because we were just learning the process. We've done a lot of training with kids. We've done a lot of training with staff. We're finding that people understand what bullying is now, and it's not just, you know, what you might have suspected years ago. It's much more subtle sometimes, and it's something where we do look at what's the intent behind it sometimes.
Okay.
So, I mean, we follow the policy as best we can, and I know that, you know, we've done a lot of training with the principals as well. We've also had some professional development with our legal counsel, who has helped in a lot of this as well.
So before I open this up to the rest of the board, in light of the events in the last 24 hours, does Timberlane routinely have practice, you know, of disasters like these shootings, you know, what we saw on Florida? Do we ever have those practices, or
Well,
coordinate
I know
that with Chief Jones and Plastow? Is that what you do?
He's the chairman of this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. Without getting into too much detail, it's definitely something that's been in place for a while. They do handle it.
Okay.
We do, as far as the safety committee, we've talked about it in non-public, and we do discuss, you know, the practices and how they do handle it, and I can assure you that they do take care of it quite well.
Great.
They're on top of it.
Well, that's good. I just, you know, like I said, in light of, and it just seems every time you turn around and you see on the news that people say, we didn't think it would happen here,
There's
and
a lot of
it just
ongoing-
happened.
There's a lot of ongoing learning from, you know, the communities together, as well as Homeland Security lends a helping hand to help out.
Well, the governor was talking about that tonight, too, so obviously, as he
They do
should
lend
be.
a hand, so.
All right, well, thanks. Anyone on the board have any questions here about?
I just have a comment. Dr. Wilson, thank you for sharing that update. I talk to a lot of parents, and I know right now that it's very sensitive out there with the parents and the bus rides, the cafeteria situations, but I just want to reinstate, I hope there's continuous training for the teachers and the staff and with this subject, because I have never heard so many stories of just parents concerned, but I know the teachers need the support too, to how to handle these situations and, you know, give training, you know, as much training as possible to, you know, try to, you know, deal with this current situation. I mean, this is, even when I go to, you know, to Massachusetts for sporting events or different things, I mean, this is the topic of all the parents that I talk to about, this happened to my son or daughter on the bus, and this happened last week, and that happened, and I can't even imagine the emails that go to the teachers and the principals, and I mean, it's gotta be a lot there to deal with, on top of trying to educate our kids, so. My point is just, I hope they get as much training as possible, and it's continued throughout the year, each year.
Right.
And the support is for the, you know, for
Well, I can also share with you that I remember the day when I did training with our lunch staff and making sure that they all understood, because they're front and center. I went to the terminals and I trained the bus drivers and understanding what it is, because they see it on the bus. So we have some regular systematic training that occurs not just with just staff, which we think is our responsibility to do. So, you know, we try to look at it from kind of outside in.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I appreciate your comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Steph, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely think that we should have more discussion as a district about this topic. Not just, unfortunately, in light of what happened yesterday, but I think, in general, I think it's a topic that we need to talk about more. I would be curious to see the number of incidents that have been reported since September 1st for each school. I'd like to see that. And I think that this, just in general, should be an ongoing discussion. It shouldn't just be a 20-minute school board discussion. So I'd like to see if we can get those
Well,
figures.
again, we were sitting there Thursday night at deliberative, and myself, we were drafting up an agenda, and I just put bullying down there, and I just trying to get an overview,
Yeah.
and then Dr. Metzler said, well, I won't be around next week, so if an overview's okay, then, because I'd rather have an in-depth review if you give me more time. I said, well, that's fine. I mean, I was just, I knew there was a process. I just wasn't familiar with what it was.
Right.
Because like Greg, I hear these things, and I just wanted to hear from the pros what they're doing here.
So is that something that we can get?
Oh, I believe it's in the works for a future meeting.
No,
but-
she's asking for specifically how many
Incidents we've
of
had.
bullying since September 1 by
We
school.
do get that. I
Broken
don't know,
down by
when do
school.
we get that? Because we've seen it before. We
Usually-
do get it in a report. I don't remember which one or when it is, but we do get it.
Broken down by school, though.
Yeah,
I think it's usually by the end of the year,
yeah, and it is broken
because
down
it's
by
at
school.
our end-of-year reporting.
There are some FERPA things we need to look at there, because when you
Yeah.
start to break it down into fine groupings, then it becomes an identifiable situation.
Yeah,
So you
no,
need
I'm
to-
just-
I want to protect kids
Oh,
and
yeah, so do
families. I know you do too, but,
Okay, so that's something that is scheduled, we're already in start price, so that would be coming out at an end-of-year type thing. And is it, as Stephanie said, is it, when you guys do it, is it by school?
Each principal has to report it, so
Okay.
I believe it is, yes.
So they
it
would
is
have
by
the
school.
records of that. So it shouldn't be that difficult to get the number.
Do they report it on a monthly basis?
No,
No,
not
they
to,
only report it for the whole year?
because that's what is required through the
their thing.
Department of Ed.
Okay, so you're only requiring them to report it at the end of the year for the Department of Ed, but it's not being reported at all up to your
Yes,
administration?
it is.
Oh,
Yes, it is, but I'm saying the actual number is what we need to report to the DOE at the end of the year.
Okay, so, but I think what Stephanie's asking for is year-to-date, what it is, correct? Before we get to the end of the year? Or,
Well, I was answering Chairman Boyle's question.
Okay. So, obviously the information exists, so I suppose we can get it.
Great, thank you.
All right. So,
Brian, I'd just like to speak from an educator's point of view that, as an educator, we want to prevent bullying. Not just how do we deal with it when it happens, but how do we work with kids on an ongoing basis to understand relationships with kids and the bus situations and the situations you run into your life, so that it becomes a preventive, not reaction. The teachers have had training, the kids have programs, we have guidance staff that are very, very eager and willing to provide any of that, they get involved. So it's not just one and done kind of a thing, it's not a 20-minute discussion here, it's an ongoing thing.
Ongoing.
Anybody in a school situation.
Right, but I mean, it just, in terms of the public, I think it's important for them to know that it's a topic of concern for the school board in general, and that it's an ongoing conversation, not just tonight. And I understand and appreciate that it's happening and behind the
Always on
scenes,
their
I get
agenda.
that. But I'm saying, for those that are maybe not necessarily privy to that, I think that it should be something that is ongoing.
Oh, we could talk about the same thing, the war on drugs. We had a wonderful roundtable that Jack Sapia put together. Really? That was
Right.
amazing.
Right.
You think that's the only time that these people are dealing with that? No,
No,
on
I
an
know that.
ongoing daily basis.
I know that.
So it's always that educational piece. How do we prevent kids from catching the flu?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just one and done. They're always working on that.
We brought
piece.
it up months ago, and I think 6 or 7 months ago, but I mean, behavioral health of our students is so important right now, and seeing what the triggers are, why does someone feel safe and another student doesn't feel safe? There's so many factors that go into behavioral health, and I know we talked about it, and ongoing, the training and what we're trying to do. But my big thing is, I think the teachers, the principals, everyone needs support from all the trainings that you're doing, and
Right.
just make it continuous, and if they need something that they're not getting, we get it to them, because they're the front lines, so we need them to be well-equipped.
We do look at this from all perspectives, and some of the things that we put in place
No,
in the
yeah,
last few
yeah.
years have been instrumental in making sure that we have certified BCBA's, that, the board-certified behavior technicians that can work with students with some behavior challenges. We have school social workers, and without them, we
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to address some of the issues that we have with families. We have training involved, we have legal aspects of this where we have learned to kind of parse the different aspects of, what it is in terms of protecting the information and confidentiality of the situation. So, there's a lot of resources, and I can't say enough about what Mrs. Rassico does as the Director of Student Services, because she has the ability to focus on the supports from the psychologists that we have, from the supports of the counselors and the supports of the nurses. And those folks are instrumental in kind of being on the front lines for a lot of this. So.
Kelly, you had something you wanted?
Oh, thank you. While I'm not opposed to having, Mrs. Doobie get a number year to date, I would caution that that number might not be totally accurate if some of that stuff could have been reported, but it might not have been substantiated, it might not have been finished investigation. So there could be a number of reported, but it might not be actual cases, or it might be something where there was multiple, what I mean?
Sure.
At the end of the year, you get a finalized number where they weed everything out and put it together and say, this is the actual number, so.
No, I don't think that's what
It might
they
give
do.
you a brief overview, but I don't think it would be something that would be set in stone, so.
Right,
just-
but I think, no, I appreciate that, but I think that what Dr. Wilson was saying was that the incidents, they go up to the state regardless.
Number.
Right. So that's essentially what I'm looking for. I appreciate what you're saying, but that's what I'm looking for.
And to finish, also, while I don't disagree with discussing this topic and making sure that the public understands that we're constantly talking about it, because I know it comes up in the safety committee quite a bit, as far as the safety and security of our students. That's like aside from our employees' safety, that's our primary focus in there. We talk about that quite a bit. And everything we can do to make it better and best practices. We probably couldn't have a lot of discussion on the in-depth part of it here, because you're skating that line of who's who, and, you know what I mean?
It's
You
too
really can't-
identified.
We can
Right.
talk about what the actual policy says and our actual procedures, but we really can't talk about kind of what's going on and how we handle a lot of stuff here in public, so.
I
It would be
appreciate-
difficult, but we can continually say that, we are handling these, we are dealing with this, and I can speak from personal, without going into detail, that the staff here is phenomenal with this. In my history, they're on top of it, they deal with it wonderful. Attention to detail is key, and I've had no issues with them and the way they handle stuff, so.
Yeah, but I guess, I'm glad you shared that, because I was trying to get a feel for, because I heard them, again, on the news, that there are other districts, the whole country, that they have they practice, some
Oh, you're
people.
talking about the practice drills.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And that's,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that comes
that's
from
what-
Kelly's
Absolutely.
committee.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
and then how we go, that's,
Yeah.
that's
And
all.
I'll be perfectly happy to discuss that offline with you.
Sure, great.
So that you're in the know.
Super,
It's not a
yeah,
problem.
that's all. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Wilson.
Yes.
Sorry, can I just ask one question, Dr.
Yeah.
So this is, you mentioned that our policies are based on state laws, correct? Is that-
Yes.
is-
Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm educating myself here on this. Is this chapter 193 that talks about people
193F?
safety? 193F, have it
Yes.
right here. Okay.
Yes.
So, I think that discussion is important too. Just my guess, and I'm as guilty as this as probably most parents, is I don't read a lot of what gets put out at the beginning of the year, is that all this is laid out for parents somewhere within their student handbooks or wherever. So I think that's important for parents to know, that they should be able to find this process. And sometimes I think, as a parent, that maybe you you know,
Yeah.
they're not aware that it is there, what the process is and how to go about addressing it if you don't feel it's resolved. So just for that reason, I feel this is a fruitful discussion to have in a public forum.
I mean, the other thing, because it is so expansive, and I do a lot of the interviewing for new staff and also for subs. It is always on my agenda. I have I go through the top 5 policies that I want people to read and to understand, and JICK is one of them. So anyone coming into our district, those are the ones that I say, if you're gonna do anything, these are the ones that are the top priorities. And if you are accepting a position, you have to at least let us know and guarantee that you have done that. So, I mean, those are other things that we have to think about, because, and I said, you don't have to know everything, but if you suspect anything, talk to somebody. Let an administrator know. We can help you with that. So, I'm very clear with folks who are coming on board.
Okay, super. Personnel?
Yes, your personnel report,
Some retirements here?
you do have retirements. Because I don't do this in Timberlane very often, do I share the names?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We would like to say for retirements, we have Mr. Sheridan Dodge, the science teacher, who has 16 years with the district. We have Candace Lee, who was our high school nurse, 17 years with the district. And Ann Luker, and a special education teacher from Danville with 32 years with the district. Can't say enough about the 3 of these folks, and we're going to miss them quite a bit. We also have a support staff person's retirement as well, and that's Barbara Deaver from the middle school. She's a special education para-educator with 27 years. And I say that because it's unbelievable to me that people, the loyalty that they have with this
I agree.
district.
I
And
agree.
it's very much appreciated for everything that they've done.
Mrs. Sherman?
Move to accept these retirements with deep regrets and best wishes for retirement. It's a lot of years there, added up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for the service.
Kelly did.
Kelly, second. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Before we leave this out, I just read those 4 letters.
Yeah.
And there's two requests in here.
Okay?
Dr.
that.
Dodge,
You should share
I'm
that
sorry.
publicly. Is that correct to do, Nancy?
There are no problems with eligible benefits.
I was gonna say.
Oh, there are, okay, never mind,
Even though they mention it,
Sorry.
there isn't.
apologize. But just so the viewing audience knows, I
If
actually
you were-
read these.
If you were thinking that, I just threw that out there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're good. Okay?
That's it.
You good? Thank you very much. Let's see.
Minutes?
Minutes, let's go.
Make a motion to accept both sets of minutes before us tonight, February 1st, 2018, and February 8th, 2018.
I'll second, but I have a suggestion, I guess. Of the minutes on February 8th, page 2. Second paragraph, a motion to fire the attorney was made. Donna made the motion, it should say her name. I mean, if I made the motion, right, I mean, it should say the name of the person that made the motion.
Where are you?
Yeah.
Page 2?
Yep.
Where are you? I'm sorry.
Second paragraph down from the top, you see it, Greg?
February 8th?
Right there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, right, the last sentence of that second paragraph.
Dan's right, yeah.
I'm not seeing it, I'm sorry.
All right, it's right here.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Motion was made by Mrs. Green,
I'll put that in there.
and there was no second.
You got that?
Okay. Okay. Any other,
Yeah, so, I'm sorry,
What's
can we
the
just go
minutes?
back to that for a quick second? The then further down, on that same page, about halfway down, Mrs. Green, motion the board direct the superintendent to immediately rescind the no trespass order and cease the investigation, seconded by Mrs. Doobie. Sorry, what am I missing?
I'm
No, he's talking about
correcting a sentence way
At
above
the
that.
top,
Okay,
A motion to fire the attorney.
all right, fair enough,
Is made,
thanks. Okay. I thought you were questioning that
No,
actual
no,
motion.
No. Any other questions, corrections? Okay, all those in favor of approval of minutes as amended? Unanimous, thank you.
Unanimous, thank you.
We do have a request here from a, let's see, request from a resident. Gil, that may be correct?
Yeah, do you want me to talk about this? I think it was approximately a month ago, and I'll mention the person's name because the person made this complaint publicly.
just add stuff.
What? Okay. That was investigated per policy KEB by the administration, as it should have been. So it was a complaint made to the board. It was referred to school administration for study and possible solutions. That has been complete. And then further, the policy says, if it appears necessary, the administration, the person who made the complaint, or the employee involved may request an executive session of the board for purposes of fuller study and a decision by this body. So the person that made the complaint was not satisfied with what the administration replied with and is requesting an executive session of the board.
Which is a non-public.
Which is a non-public. I looked up what an executive session of a board typically is. An executive session of a board is typically just the board members. No staff are included unless they're requested to be included. So, and I'm not saying that we would not include them. I just, per executive session, unless somebody else on this board knows what it has a different definition, that's what I take the definition to be. I could not find a definition anywhere within our policies.
Does
Does
the
anybody
policy-
know?
Does the
Yeah,
policy call,
I've never seen a definition.
does the policy call out executive, or
Yeah,
does it say
does.
non-public?
How old is that policy, by the way? I'm just curious.
Well, actually, it's 2005, and I did go to the New Hampshire School Board model policy, and we really do need to update that one. That should go on to, if you, somebody, well, theirs was revised in 2007, so, and it is quite a bit lengthier than
Yeah, I
ours.
see that.
Which
I-
policy is it?
It's KEB, but, I mean, we have to go with the current policy.
Absolutely.
Since we don't have a definition anyplace in the policy that states what an executive session is, we then have to rely on what we think it is, and we think it's a non-public.
Non-public, yeah, I would think.
But
I've always heard those two terms interchangeably.
interchanged, me
Right.
too, but
But executive session, I have heard, because sometimes, I know where I work, our boards will go into executive session, which means the ex officio members and anybody else who is, for instance, when we're gonna close down a program, we will go into executive session and make that decision without other people there. So that's typically the context I've seen it in, is that it's just the board itself. And other people are only invited in at the board's.
yeah, you.
But in this particular case, I think, I agree with Sue, we're gonna have to go, if you're going down that road, you're gonna have to go down non-public, because you're gonna need input
Oh, yes.
We're gonna need
it's
input
definitely gonna
from
need-
non-board members,
Yeah, we need minutes
So,
and
so you need input.
record of what went on.
So,
So, I'm just trying to figure, so, I guess what we need to do is plan for an
plan for non-public.
plan for a non-public for the next
Which would be on the agenda, and then you
meeting.
would, then
Yes,
you would
but
notify.
also, the people involved
We should notice those
It should
people,
be
Yes.
noticed.
request their,
They
you know,
will need to be noticed, because there
Yep.
were
Right.
people called out in the complaint.
Yep.
This person that made, the other request that this person has is to know whether or not they can bring somebody else with them.
Would we need to ask legal that?
I don't think,
Well, if they're gonna bring their attorney, we're gonna bring ours. I mean, you
If-
need to be.
if it's an
you need to
attorney,
be
right, if it's
You
an-
need to be represented.
No
Just
question.
for
If,
six
if,
months.
if a person's bringing an attorney, I agree. Yeah,
Well,
But we wouldn't know
I
that.
agree.
well,
Unless we know who they're bringing.
if it,
If it's
All right,
just, if
I
it's a
will- I can-
friend, it's just some
well,
moral
the chair
support.
can ask that question, I'm only.
I don't,
That's right.
Is-
what? Okay. It's a non-public. It's like, obviously, this is you're acting, I guess, as some sort of an appeal board, I guess is what you're doing here.
So I'm not sure we should even be having this discussion, other than if we're gonna if we're gonna grant the public, because once we start talking about it, then we're talking about it in public, when it should be a non-public to protect all the parties involved.
Okay.
Put it on the agenda, right?
Right, put it on the agenda,
No,
or,
yeah, but the
But now it's
person
a
is gonna
request.
need to
Agenda.
know, it was a request, and they're gonna need to know in advance whether or
I know.
not they're allowed to, 'cause I don't.
wouldn't we vote?
Does the board have the request? The board chair?
The board doesn't have the request, do they? It only went to
It
the
went to the
chairs.
chair.
Yes.
It did, okay.
And it actually didn't go just to the chair, because it also went to, Mrs. Louiselle, also went to.
It went to Nancy, right?
It went to Stephanie and I, because we're from this town.
Oh, I didn't know
this
that.
person is.
It
Well,
went
I
to
know you
Brian,
didn't, I'm
and it
just-
went to me, and that's
Oh,
where
it
I
went to you.
stopped it. I mean, I got a copy of it because it was addressed to me.
Didn't go to me.
So it did not go to the full board.
So it needs to, I mean, it can,
It's up
it
to
can
the
go out to the
Timberlane
full
board.
board.
It should have.
It should have, you're right, it should have been included in the correspondence folder.
But with
Was
any-
it in the correspondence
It's not,
folder?
it's
No.
not in the correspondence folder?
It might be.
I think it is.
didn't really read the correspondence
notice it.
folder.
I thought,
There's a lot of paper in there. I might have missed a page.
I would guess,
Do we want to go into non-public to discuss whether we want to go into non-public?
I don't think.
This is handled like any other appeal.
right,
You schedule it,
right,
you put
exactly.
it on. My opinion is, the superintendent is always, someone from the superintendent's always at a non-public.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
if you have other reasons for that, then you need to talk to Dr. Metzler about that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's to hear the appeal, the reason
Yes,
for it, right?
correct.
You don't always have to make the decision. You may have to do an investigation on your own. So that's why you have a non-public, to hear what the conflicts are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what an appeal is. You might decide something that immediate night, you might decide to find more information.
Sure.
That's the privilege of the board.
I don't see it in here.
So it's not, so
No.
Okay.
not everybody saw that.
We'll make sure that gets in the,
Well,
forwarded to
Or can we
everybody.
make a decision whether to go, to have this executive session?
so you have, well,
Without you
bottom
guys.
line, we're
Well-
following policy
Can
here.
I see the? Thank you.
You're-
Well, the thing is, if we are not going to have an executive session,
Or non-public.
then we need to make a motion to waive the to do something with the policy, because then if we don't, by policy, we were supposed to have an executive session.
What's the policy? You have the policy there?
KEB.
You have it there or no?
Yeah.
Can I just read it real quick?
So, if we're not gonna have an executive session, then what has to happen is it's not only the not to go into non-public, but you also have to, you're not following your policy, that's all I'm saying.
But I'm hearing,
You're suggesting that, well, yeah, Dr.
That you
Wilson's
are.
saying we schedule it,
Yeah.
which I agree.
people a notice.
I have another question about this. So I'm reading through this, and I'm seeing that the chair didn't respond to the applicant. Kim, you did.
The chair asked me to respond to the
Yeah.
applicant.
And in here, you're already guaranteeing an executive
non-public.
session.
Yeah, this shouldn't
Well-
be,
Should we go into
shouldn't be
non-public
doing
now?
this
No.
publicly, okay.
By
names.
policy,
I'm
we are
out.
supposed to be giving one. If we don't wanna do that, we need to negate our policy. I may be incorrect in that, but.
Well, it says request. I mean, we can just deny the request.
Mr. Chairman,
But I'm reading this, the board will plan to have an executive session. I mean,
Well,
Okay,
you should bring
that's
that to
great.
the board first.
Okay, well, it's in the front of the board right now.
It's in front of the board now.
Hopefully this person
Is this yours or?
is gonna be notified, in case this doesn't go, they would be notified that it wouldn't.
Okay.
You already told them in there.
This
you
is
already told
policy?
them that,
Well,
yes.
she told him in the email, right?
Under the chair's direction, so I
Well,
interpreted
you're
the
going by
policy wrong.
policy.
Yeah,
Policy says
Going by the
request.
policy.
It says request, it doesn't say you will have.
Yeah, it
does
doesn't say granted.
Doesn't say grant one.
It says you may request. So there was a request.
Well, then,
So don't we
Hey,
need to decide whether we want to
Yep.
And I
The
guess we'll
employees.
have to do that.
Honor the request, and then it would be,
Employee.
we need to schedule a non-public.
Okay, so do we need to go into a non-public now to do this? I'm fine.
10 minutes
I'm
ago.
fine. Okay, let's go into, I'll make a motion to go into
I don't think we need to go
non-public.
into non-public to schedule.
Yeah,
Where are you saying this?
I
This is,
think we need
you
to do
just,
that.
do you say 1 second, please?
I'm getting confused here.
Yeah.
See why we would have to.
Fucking- This is about employees. What's going on?
Well, the complaint was about an employee.
Let's, please,
Yeah.
please. There's no name, please.
We move
Okay.
on
Okay,
Yeah, there's 700 of them, so we don't have to worry about that. Maybe there's 800.
I would suggest you get copies of that out to the board, and at the next meeting, that the board decide whether to grant that or not, once they've read what you have.
there's nothing that I have that pertains to granting it or not. There's, all it is a request to have an executive session.
But doesn't it say in the
But
policy?
you've already said in there that you're gonna grant it.
you
Well, that is
email
my error, and I will certainly, or on behalf of the chair,
Yeah, I asked her to
will send
respond.
it
to be
out.
honest with you.
then we will correct that. But right now, I guess, we want to wait another 2 weeks before we decide we're going to have an executive session?
Are we, but we're not ready to
You're not gonna have it
have an
tonight.
executive session now, because
No, we
we
are
don't
not.
all know about it.
No.
Unless you,
I have no
people
idea.
Nope.
saying they do and they don't.
Nope, we are not doing that.
No, we're not having an executive session, but I keep hearing that you want to go into a non-public. I'm not sure.
I don't, no.
We keep
I wanna just stop
traveling
talking
into
about
that area that I think is not protective of
Where
anybody.
does it say, though, the board, I'm not saying this. About
The
where
part
bo-
that I said, Brian?
Yes, yes,
The request part?
yes. I see where they can request the board.
And they did.
The person the person who made the complaint
Yes.
may request an executive
Right.
executive
That's what I'm
session
talking
of the board.
Right.
And
The
Okay, so
person may
there's not-
request.
So they
Got it.
requested, so where's it say we can deny it?
You
Well, a
can
request.
always, you
Oh,
can
okay.
always,
You can always
you
deny
know,
a request.
you have a choice
Right.
of whether
Okay.
you're gonna do that or not.
All right,
Okay.
I just was reading it as a process.
It's an automatic. that
Was it a process?
They say, I want one, you have to give it to them? Is that what you thought?
That's how I was reading it, yeah,
Oh,
there's a
that's
process.
how I heard that.
Okay, that's how I understood it.
So there's a request that has been made. That's the bottom line. There's no more information about this. There is a request, the person was not satisfied. There
Right.
was a request that was made. End of story. There's nothing there's nothing to add to this
Can we just
story.
put it on the next agenda, have a non-public, and just notice folks and be done with it?
Notice, folks, that
I mean,
You mean have the non-public then, or discuss having the non-public?
no,
Have
have
the
the
non-public.
non-public at
Have
the
the
next meeting, notice people who need to be noticed, and just get it done. Next, I mean, I think really if somebody asked for, you know,
Are you
some
making a
sort of.
motion?
Yeah, I mean, I will in a minute, but I think that if somebody says, hey, listen, you know, I'm not necessarily satisfied with X, this is my next recourse, I don't see the problem in somebody doing that. I don't see why,
Seem to be
anybody
following
would,
the
I don't
process,
see
yeah.
why anybody would thwart that process,
I agree.
quite frankly.
I agree.
So,
Me personally, I agree.
I don't think we need to even take a motion. I think we as a board should just allow it to happen and let it, I mean,
I think
Okay.
we
it's
need
a
a
big
motion.
deal.
Okay, make a motion, Steph.
I guess I make a motion to have the board have an executive
Non-public?
session, non-public, at the next meeting.
At the March 8th meeting.
Yeah.
Is it, no, let's see, that's us?
For the purpose of,
I don't see a problem.
to honor the request of the person asking for the executive session.
Yeah.
okay.
I'll second
deal.
that.
Okay. All those
Can
in
I just
favor?
make sure I have that? To have the board have a non-public executive session on March 8th, 2018 for the purpose of honoring the request of the person, to request, a request, just leave it at the request, yeah. Is that better?
It's an appeal, technically, right?
That's exactly what it
Now we
is.
can act as the appeal board.
That's exactly what it is.
We could bring that up then.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's crazy that we even have to take a vote over that. That's unbelievable.
Honoring
Okay.
the appeal request?
Yes,
The appeal request,
Perfect.
thank you. That's
Perfect.
Thank you.
perfect.
There are people's reputations, everybody's to protect.
Right, but
That's
there's a
why it needs to
process
be
and
a
this person is
Oh, I
following the
agree.
process, so.
Okay,
I agree.
motion
Your
made
second?
and second. All those in favor of the motion?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You can have it.
Okay, opposed? Okay, thank you. So almost 5-3. Anyone have any committee reports? I think nothing much has happened. We're all together. Oh, jeez. How can I forget all these good times we keep having here?
Many meetings.
Wow.
Strategic planning's been meeting, subcommittees have been meeting. The main committee met, what was that, Monday?
Monday.
We're all moving along, and people are
Yep.
putting together their goals and action items, and we're trying to, everybody's trying to come up with the same format to lay it out from years 1 to 5. I think our next, there'll be a couple more meetings of the subcommittees, and then we'll come back together as a
Yep.
large group, and then hopefully at some point, I would say hopefully April, May, something like that, we would have a draft to start,
Yeah.
to have the board take a look at.
Yeah, and on that, I'm also on that, the facilities portion, so that's what's going on here, that everything, there were 3 subcommittees, now they're all being coordinated. So
Right.
we're making progress.
Very nice report.
Very nice, you like that? Yeah, okay. Peter?
Let's go make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Wait. I just have one thing to add. The senior tea that we had a few months ago.
At Christmas
Yes,
at the middle school?
yes, which I think is one of the best events. It's so enjoyable to attend. Colby Corner, the Dunkin' Donuts, always provides coffee. I went to high school with the owner. Great guy. I just want to say,
Is this a plug?
I want to say thank you because he always gives free coffee
Okay.
for that day, and he does a great job. And we've never really thanked him.
That's nice.
And I want to just say thank you to him for providing coffee every year without any questions asked.
Do we send it out? Let's send him a letter from the school board.
That'd be great. We could. Yeah.
And the guy's gonna draft is Greg Sparrow.
Okay.
Because he's the man.
Can I
I
have
just
one
need
more
the
thing?
letterhead, and I'm fine.
Do you have his name?
Alan David Duck.
Alan what?
David Duck. Drives around with a Hummer with it.
Yeah, flipping off
Yeah,
kids.
yeah. Really? Yeah, he's so giving, and he'll never question, and he always provides coffee. It's great.
Kim?
The Model UN did go down to Boston last weekend. I almost forgot this, my daughter was gone. And they had a great time. I know they're very appreciative. I know, it's, they were very appreciative of us supporting that. There were kids from all over the country. There were international students. There were bilingual sessions. I know at least, and Mr. Richmond's here, I know Cam Collins got an award. I'm not. Magner.
Ken Collins graduated.
Right, it's Magner. And I think
There are a couple of they had a new category of audible awards that they didn't actually get anything physical, but, oh, sorry. Yes, unfortunately Trish Moore isn't here, but there were a couple that got a couple of, they didn't get the physical awards, they had a new category, which was interesting, but, you know, our delegation did receive several awards, as they usually do. And then, of course, we're down, my group is down in Boston next week. So hopefully we come back with even more accolades for Timberlane.
Model UN is going on another one in a couple weeks, too.
They've got a couple coming up. It's basically like one a month, I think, for the rest of the year. June, I'm looking forward to a nap in June. As I'm sure
Okay,
Trish is as
now
well,
Peter.
Trish Moore.
Thank you.
Peter, please.
Sure, motion to adjourn.
Great. Oh, I'm sorry. Kelly?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, my God.
This is like whack-a-mole.
Almost.
I had a quick question. Being that we're coming up on March, we usually have the school board self-evaluations. We usually do that and have them so that we can go over them prior to the election. So we can have everybody
on the
who's here,
agenda
who's
list.
been on it, to get that. I just didn't know if that got, I know there's been a lot of stuff going on.
Yes.
I didn't know if that just kinda got like
Well,
passed over, or, 'cause we
let me
usually
ask-
have it, but Kathy send it out so that we can get it done.
Okay,
Okay,
let
we'll
me
do that.
ask you if this is what I think it
Yeah,
is.
it's on the 8th agenda, yeah.
Is this where people were evaluating the school board?
No, it's our self-evaluation, we evaluate ourselves.
Oh, okay,
on the performance as a board.
As
Oh.
a board, we do our own
okay,
self-evaluation.
okay. Okay.
360?
This isn't a 360 thing. This isn't the thing that happened last
It's
year.
where they send it out to each of us, and we fill out the thing, like, I put my name on it, I put the comments on it, we talk about how the board performed, the self-evaluation.
Have you seen it, Brian?
But
You haven't seen
I
it?
think
No,
the piece of it, though, I think you might be
There was
confusing
something that
is-
bothered me watching last year where, and I don't know if that was, maybe that's not what it was. I thought there were
It was a
people.
piece of it. They were part and parcel.
Yeah, where people were evaluating the school board who were not on the school board.
Right.
It's like, as far as I'm concerned, the voters evaluate the school board. You don't want you? They'll get you out. So,
Yeah.
Anonymous comments on this.
I didn't, well,
Sure
that's,
that wasn't on the.
No. It was
that must have been another
Okay,
thing.
I must
That
be
must,
wrong.
that must
Sure it
not
wasn't
be,
on the
that,
superintendent's evaluation?
No, it was ours. Because
oh,
if you
no,
recall,
because,
Donna
no,
and I
there
were
was a
incredibly
few
upset.
board members that were attacked.
Yeah.
Because I
Reading
was
them out
watching
loud,
TV
yeah.
and it's like,
I'm sorry, could you repeat
that
that?
won't happen while I'm sitting here, that, you know,
I
guys.
won't
Reading
take
out
part of
loud?
it. I'm not gonna take any part of that, if that's what
So
it is
that's what I'm
again.
asking. Yeah, you know, I'm not big on that, you know, to me, as far as I'm concerned, we all, yes, so I'll have to look into this.
Can you research it and then let
I'll
us know?
have to see what this is, what this
We've
document
done
is.
it for
Vote on the self-evaluation.
self-evaluation.
Okay,
Helps
okay.
us decide.
Take a vote to do it.
Well, no, I
necessarily.
wasn't
it's-
taking a vote, I was asking if it got.
Yeah,
used.
I
just mean
We
it's
usually have
okay,
it to
just
do-
if you investigate, and if you like it, then
Great.
make it
'cause
still number one.
Okay,
you
okay,
know.
that's fine.
It is
I
on-
guess, Pete, I just wanted to see what it is. I just
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
wanna,
it's been
I don't wanna
sent out every
participate what I
vote
obs,
that day.
what I
That's
observed
what I
last
said.
year.
That's why I
you
said,
know?
investigate it, but you could just
You
make
know.
it go if you're okay with it.
It
All
does
right,
say.
okay.
Yeah, it does
All
say
right.
self-evaluation.
Third time's a charm, Peter. Now give it a shot again.
No!
It says self right on it, it says
This
self-evaluation.
says self-evaluation from March 8th.
Okay.
So I don't know
All right,
what that means, but we
okay.
need to
I wanna see
decide.
one.
Yeah, okay, fine, I'm making the motion.
Good.
All right. Do you have a
Right.
second?
Second.
Okay. We're adjourned. Good, all set.
That was a fast meeting.